Hi there, I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson with this look at some information about severe weather going on in portions of the state, as well as portions of the far southwestern fringe of the TV9 viewing area with a new severe thunderstorm warning or two to give you more information about. Meteorologist AJ Rickman will be joining me here shortly as well. We're all just monitoring things here in the TV9 Weather Lab right now as storms have developed and they are really starting to push to the northeast. So let's go ahead and take a look at pinpoint Doppler radar. Two severe thunderstorm warnings that touch the very outer edges of the viewing area. One is for portions of Mahaska County, goes until 3:30 this afternoon. That's for the threat for 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail. Do note that that warning also includes a section that says a tornado is possible but not imminent as the storm moves in. Similar portions of southeastern Mahaska County as well as Wapello County. Similar qualities to this storm, 60-mile-per-hour winds and 1-inch hail as they all move off to the northeast at a real fast pace. We're talking about speeds of about, latest check, 45 miles per hour and 40 miles per hour. So they've slowed down just a little bit, but a couple of storms to watch. So we'll go ahead and put on a storm track for this storm as it's moving off to the northeast. This is the worst part of the storm, and of course we'll take it out about an hour as it moves 45 miles per hour. Tumwa, it's there pretty much. It's right outside town, and you'll be seeing some rain and potentially hail soon. Moving up toward Hedrick at 328, Packwood at 337, Sigourney at about 344, and Keota closer to 357. All tracking to the northeast again. It's going to be moving at a pretty quick pace, and that's a severe thunderstorm warning, quarter-sized hail, and 60 miles per hour in terms of the wind speeds. We'll take a closer look at this storm as well. It's got the possibility of quarter-sized hail and heavy rain and frequent lightning, and that possibility of some rotation developing too. It gets up toward Oskaloosa closer to 318, Rose Hill at 328, Delta at 336, Whatcheer at 339, Gibson closer to 342. Now many of these areas are not in the warning currently, but if this storm maintains its intensity, it'll be moving your way. Another pocket of storms which is outside the TV9 viewing area, but that is moving northeast. It includes portions of Jasper, Marion, Polk, and Warren counties. So this is southeast of the Des Moines area. This storm is moving northeast or east-northeast. Let's loop it to see where we're at. Yeah, it's still got a bit of a northeast motion to it at 50 miles per hour. So we'll put a storm track on that and take it off to the northeast. And that gets you toward portions that are actually closer to our area. Gilman at about 324, same in Grinnell. Malcolm at about 333, Tama at 339, Victor close to 350, and Belle Plaine at about 355. And so those are areas that we're watching. Storms that are particularly strong at this point. They are relatively isolated. We're going to go ahead and put on a wider view here. It's mostly southeast Iowa as we've been expecting. At this point, just severe thunderstorm warnings. There was one tornado warning earlier in south central Iowa. That storm is weakened, but there are storms that show some signs of rotation. And so with that tornado watch that's also in effect, we would be unsurprised if we end up with a tornado warning or two today. Everyone in the yellow, that's the tornado watch. That goes into effect until 8 o'clock. So that is with us at this time. Meteorologist AJ Rickman also hanging out with me here in the TV9 Weather Lab. AJ, what do you see?
Well, kind of like we were expecting to be the case as these storms have moved through. We've, of course, had our round of rain that pushed through early this morning, and something that we were keeping an eye on for the couple of hours leading up to this point, and that has now kind of become the case and led to the development of these showers and storms, is cloud cover breaking up. So if you'll recall, as you woke up this morning, it was rainy, it was cloudy, pretty cold, and kind of just a raw, wet start to your Thursday. But as that initial round of showers and storms pushed off to the north, it took the cloud cover with it. So if you look at what we're seeing currently with satellite and radar, we're starting to get a little bit of clearing along and south of that Highway 30 corridor. And where you get that clearing, the sun is able to make its way all the way down to the surface, and that leads to temperatures starting to climb. So in those spots where the sun is coming back out, you can see temperatures have really made their way up there. Looking at 70 right now in Iowa City, 70 in Washington, Oskaloosa at 72, 63 in Cedar Rapids, and a little cooler farther north. That's where they're still hanging onto that cloud cover, and the warm front hasn't quite made it up to places like Fayette, Prairie du Chien, and Decorah. But the other thing that you get with the warmth building in, it allows a little more moisture to work its way into the atmosphere as well. Gosh, look at that dew point down in Washington, 70 degrees. That's pretty muggy. And of course, it's going to feel muggy down there, but that also provides fuel for these storms as they are moving through. Dew points already in the 60s in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Oskaloosa, and Mount Pleasant. That is more than enough moisture to contribute to the development of these strong to severe storms. And you can see as they continue to track off to the northeast, they're going to continue to move into that favorable environment. So we're going to have to continue to watch for these storms to maintain their strength, if not strengthen a little bit, as they continue to move through. Looks like we do have a tornado warning for Ottumwa. I will be moving down to do continuous coverage for that. Corey, we'll turn it back over to you.
All right, sounds good, AJ. We'll take a look at it here as well for folks that are here with us on streaming. Give you all the information about that. That's a new warning that the National Weather Service in the Des Moines area just issued. This is on the edge of their area of responsibility. You can see it includes Wapello County until 4 o'clock. That's for hail up to $half sized, as well as an area of rotation that they believe could produce a tornado. Now, we've got a great view of it on our city cam, which we'll show you here in just a moment to take a look at it. But you can see where there is rotation as we switch over to velocity view. Yeah, it's a little bit on the southwest side of the storm, which is exactly where you'd expect it. I'll highlight it here. We'll probably get some new radar scans in a second. And so it really is headed straight for the Ottumwa area. And the good news is, like I said, is that we have a look at the storm on our city cam. And it does look like we may have a pretty good look at the storm, the center of the storm where it is rotating. And so bear with me as I pan around here just to make sure we're not missing something incredibly obvious. So I don't want to have it be just out of frame. We're looking now off a little bit southwest towards some of the heavier rain and hail potentially. And so I do think it's either this edge is showing a little bit of the potentially gusty winds that could come with a storm like this. But I want to say this is also what we're watching. I don't see any evident tight rotation that would be associated with a imminent funnel cloud or a tornado. But it certainly is something to keep an eye on. And we will do as such over the next little while. Many areas of eastern Iowa are included in that tornado watch, as we discussed. If you are watching us from communities that are currently seeing partly cloudy skies or even some cloudier skies, you may be wondering what's all the big noise about. And so let's take sort of a broad storm track, and we'll do it at the fastest speed that we have recorded right now, and sort of just put on the leading edge of all of these storms and take it off to the northeast through the next couple of hours. So that takes you through, assuming that they keep the same speed and they keep their strength, this takes you through to Oskaloosa at about 3:06, 3:35 for Tama, 3:46 for Washington. Waterloo, you would be getting involved in some of this as well. That would get close to at 4:03, although it does look likely that the chance for severe weather in Waterloo is relatively lower than a lot of these other places. So that's the good news there. Blackhawk County not included in the tornado watch. Iowa City had a question about that on Facebook. Be closer to the 4:16 time frame. Now give this a little bit of wiggle room as there could be some change in forward speed. There's also some gaps. It's not a solid line, and so all of these storms there may be a little bit of space in between, and so not everyone will see the strongest of storms. So Cedar Rapids closer to 4:30, Manchester at about 4:59, and then we're getting up toward Monticello at 5:05, and Dubuque closer to 5:43. So that's a wide overview of what we could expect over the next little while. Got a long ways to go, folks, before these storms move out of eastern Iowa and the threat comes to an end, at least for tonight. That is the hope and the expectation. So we're keeping a close eye on everything as it moves in. And we've got, that handful of warnings on the very edge of the TV9 viewing area and the potential for more to come, too. The most imminent one is that tornado warning down toward Ottumwa. And so far it is just radar indicated, but there is rotation on radar. And so that is why the National Weather Service issued that warning. Looking at the city cam off the air here, I don't see anything especially worrisome at the moment. But again, we're going to keep a close eye on it. So we have got a good position down there in Ottumwa. Our sister station, KYOU, has eyes on it as well. Let's take a look. Tomo's got that information pulled up here. CityCam, again, ominous skies for sure. Temperatures down there about 69 degrees. Winds are coming from the south, though, at about 21 miles per hour. And that's been a change compared to where we have been most of the day. A lot of places have been seeing easterly winds. That's been keeping our temperatures relatively cool. It's been keeping the threat for severe weather this morning with storms rolling through relatively low. And so that's the good news there. Other storms, though, I mean, there's quite a few lined up. We'll take a look at a couple other city cams. Sigourney, you are in an area that's not seeing storms right now. You're underneath some clouds associated with the storms that are moving through to your southwest. But if we go farther northeast, Coralville, yeah, you're seeing a little bit of sun. Now, it's in between clouds, and so it's not necessarily the fullest sunshine that you've seen, but there are other areas where the sun is really peeking out, and that's why we've seen the atmosphere kind of reload a little bit. This morning's rain has really filled in, and so in terms of seeing that move out, and instead we are seeing sunshine breakout, which is what we were expecting. That was all part of the severe weather outlook for today, so it's no surprise that that has come to pass. Pinpoint Doppler radar has those storms racing off to the northeast. And the good news is this really should be mostly a one and done kind of day, is that once this arc of storms moves through, we are not expecting a ton more after that. So if you are in an area that is likely to see these storms move in, we showed you that on the storm track earlier, then it will move through and be done, and then you can more or less go about your evening, as things should begin to improve after that. Let's take another look at this storm down in Wapello County. It's pretty strong. It's definitely the strongest storm of the day. You always got to be extra worried about storms that are sort of off on their own, out ahead of the line. There's a couple of things going on here. The radar detection of hail. Let's pull up our hail tracker. It's pretty impressive, I'm gonna guess. I haven't seen it yet, so you are witnessing this for the first time with me. Yeah, that puts it up to potentially some golf ball sized hail, probably moving through at least the western portion of Ottumwa, potentially damaging hail. Wouldn't be surprised if the National Weather Service increases that warning for that chance. And another thing that we can kind of see there in terms of what we see on radar, it's kind of a unique thing. It's a radar signature that extends outward. So you can see, note here, we've got the heaviest portion, these bright purples and whites. That's where the hail is likely occurring. But then down the radar beam from that, we've got this extended area of green. That's not precipitation. That's just a radar anomaly that happens when a radar beam passes through areas of large hail. It's called a three-body scatter spike. That's the technical term. But basically, it's just an indicator that, yeah, this storm is packing a punch, and it's likely going to produce that hail. Let's see if we can actually take a look at this in 3 dimensions. Bear with me, folks, as we take a look at this storm. It's got pretty tall over the past little while, certainly compared to where we have been with these storms. They've been relatively shallow in a lot of cases, which doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to be severe, but it does to some degree limit their ability to produce hail. So if this one's getting a little bit taller, then it's no surprise that we're seeing that take place. So I'm gonna go ahead and bend this down a little bit, and you can see that big red area. That's where all the densest portion of the storm is. Let me point it out with an arrow. This section, that is the thick part of the storm. And so that is where a lot of ice is likely held, and that is where we could see some pretty large hail falling through the western portion of Ottumwa into northern portions of Wapello County. If you live anywhere in between US 63 up toward Highland Center, you're likely to get involved in some of this pretty big hail potential. It could be upwards of at least golf ball sized. They haven't updated that warning just yet from the National Weather Service, but at least all indications are at this point that it could be pretty big. And it does look like the freezing levels today, I'm gonna pull some information from off the screen. So between about 10 and 20,000 feet. So if I tilt this all the way down and look at this, so we've got 10 and 20,000 feet lined up on our line here. So this is about the bottom of the freezing level. This is about the top of the peak hail growth area. And so above that, it's even colder. So it certainly is very much in line with a storm that could produce some significant hail. And we're looking at the Ottumwa City Cam now. A lot of heavy rain. Even if there's no hail falling there, it is pouring down rain in the Ottumwa area right now as the storm moves off to the northeast. That is taking place. Lindsay says, where's it heading to? Lindsay asks on Facebook, great question. It will be affecting areas of southeast Iowa. Let's take a look at pinpoint Doppler radar again and show you what to expect. This storm's still moving off to the northeast at about 45 to 50 miles per hour. Let's put it at 45. So that puts it close to Hedrick at about 325, Keota closer to 345, Kinross for 4 o'clock, Wellman closer to 406, Kelowna, that gets you up toward 414, Iowa City closer to 434. We have a new severe thunderstorm warning. It's down toward Wapello County again. They're going to get 2 rounds of storms, so they are the lone exception. It's this one lone storm out ahead, and then they have a new line of storms that the National Weather Service has issued a warning for. Includes portions of Wapello County until a little bit later. We're talking about 4 o'clock. That is when that warning expires, this time mostly for the damaging wind threat. You can see that line of storms starting to take shape. There's a couple areas that we're keeping an eye on as well outside of any sort of warning. 2 storms that are pretty strong. Oskaloosa seeing at least heavy rain at this point. The hail indication there looks relatively weak, but there is another storm down here that's outside of the TV9 viewing area, but that is down toward the Albia area. This one's pretty strong, and that is a severe thunderstorm warning that indicates that there is an area of rotation potentially. And so we'll go ahead and put our velocity scope on there. Yeah, and you can see it does include a pretty broad area of rotation, the reds and the greens. Red means away from the radar, green means toward the radar. And so that's, yeah, it's pretty broad, and that's why there isn't a tornado warning in effect, but the fact that they are indicating that, yeah, they're keeping an eye on it. That's something that they're watching pretty closely down toward that way. Of course, this is out of the TV9 viewing area, but just something that know that we're watching, and the National Weather Service is watching too. I'd say it does look like that the storm down here in Wapello County, its tornadic characteristics have perhaps lessened just a bit. Still a very strong storm, that is for certain. They put the hail size on the warning up to 1.5 inches in diameter, which is ping pong ball sized. I'm sorry, $50 size. No, that's ping pong ball sized. Got to get my hail chart out and take a look at it. Kenzie asks about Dubuque. Dubuque, it's still going to be a little ways away from where you are. And it's probably going to take a few more hours. So let's go ahead and take that wide view again. Going to put it out to the whole viewing area and switch radar looks here so we can get a sort of fuller picture of what's going on. At the fastest speeds we've seen, let's go ahead and start that over. That takes it to Cedar Rapids at about 424. Waterloo would be about the same time. Maquoketa at 519 and Dubuque closer to 530. Again, this is far enough away that speeds could change. If storms organize into a line, they would certainly provide a bit more of a severe weather threat in the form of wind. And so that is moving off to the northeast at a pretty quick pace. But that's about when you can expect it in the Dubuque area. So if you're watching from northeast Iowa, you are not necessarily out of the woods. We do know that you have a tornado watch in effect, and that continues until 8 o'clock. Pretty much the southeastern 2/3 of the TV9 viewing area included in that. And so don't give up your guard yet. We got plenty of storms to get through this afternoon. And we want you to stay safe. That's why we're here streaming with you. And that's why we're going to stick with you for the next little while, because we will keep an eye on all of this as it continues to shift off to the northeast. I'll go back to our Ottumwa City Cam real quick. Let's see. New tornado warning. Quad Cities issued it, so this is probably going to require, yeah, we'll be joining our folks on KCRG TV9. You don't have to go anywhere. You can still see us right where you're getting our stream right now, but we will be joining folks on TV9 to provide coverage to the television viewers. Stay with us. All right, if you can hear me. Yep, I am here for you, so I'm ready for you. Good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson here in the First Alert Weather Lab with an update on a tornado warning that's been issued for portions of Keokuk, Washington, and far northern Jefferson County. This is an extension of a tornado warning that was in effect for Wapello County and continues as well, but the new warning goes until 4 o'clock. You can see it flashing there on your screen. As an individual cell, those can be some of the most dangerous, moving to the northeast at about 45 miles per hour. The storm also has the potential to produce hail up to 2 inches in diameter. That's about the size of a lime or perhaps a teacup in some cases. Those are the 2 ways they're described. So not only the threat for rotation and possible tornadic activity, but we also have that threat for potentially pretty large hail. There have been some indications that that is occurring, although no reports have been found, at least as of yet. Let's put a storm track on this so you know exactly when to expect this storm moving into your area. It is moving to the northeast at 45 miles per hour. That puts it right along the path that will take it to near Pekin at 3:30, Packwood at 3:33, Talleyrand closer to 3:48, Keota, we'll call it 3:53 for your area, Westchester closer to 3:58. Then we start to get out of the morning. Washington, we're talking about down near 4:04, Kelowna closer to 4:13, Frytown also closer to 4:17. Remember, those last 3 communities, you are not included in a tornado warning at this juncture. However, if this storm maintains its strength, which it has done so far, it could be moving in a way that would take it into those areas before sooner than later, and storms are moving quick today. Let's pinpoint a little bit closer and take a look inside the storm. This storm, again, those bright pinks and whites are indicative of where the large hail is potentially occurring, but it's the southeastern portion of the storm where we're seeing that rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and put on the velocity view and give you a look at where we see the trouble in this storm. There's a couple of spots I would watch out for. This storm is broadly rotating as a whole thanks to its supercellular characteristics. The storm is rotating. It is moving off to the northeast, but then there's also the likelihood that we're seeing some activity in the far southeastern portion of the storm too, a little bit closer to Blacksburg than for, or Bladenburg, excuse me, and then moving off eventually into Jefferson and portions of Washington County. And you can see it's still a little ways to get there. That's the overall broad rotation that's moving to the northeast. As it does so, that's when you'll need to seek shelter as soon as you can. And so in a tornado warning, what we want you to do is get down below ground if you possibly can. Go to the lowest level of your home. So first floor is okay, basement's better. And get under something sturdy. Protect your head. Cover it with blankets, pillows, or a towel. You could even use a helmet. Helmet's not a bad idea either, because obviously that's going to provide you really good protection to your head as you're in, if you have to endure a tornado affecting your area. Avoid windows, doors, and outside walls. We always say put as many walls between you and the storm as you can, and so that is the advice there. Otherwise, no basement, small interior rooms on the lowest level. If you live in a mobile home, we want you to abandon it. Find your local shelter as designated by your mobile home development. Seek shelter there. The mobile home will provide very little protection from tornadoes or even just very strong damaging winds. If you are out and about, make sure to get to a sturdy structure, preferably again, lower level or into your basement. Those are the good pieces of advice too. Tornado watch continues for a broad portion of eastern Iowa. This goes until 8 o'clock tonight. The risk is primarily still for damaging wind, but tornadoes are the secondary threat. That is a possibility as these storms move in. And then we also have the potential for large hail, which does look like it would be 3 out of 3 on the list, but that doesn't mean that it's not something you should pay attention to. This storm in particular that we are interrupting programming for has the signature that would produce pretty large hail, possibly on order of about 2 inches in diameter. Let's go ahead and take a look at this storm from our Ottumwa City Cam. You'll have to bear with me as we adjust the camera's view. The storm has moved through the Ottumwa area, and we're going to go ahead and swing the camera around to see what we can see. They saw plenty of heavy rain, some isolated hail potentially, especially toward the west and northwest sides of the city. But as we look off to the northeast, we're going to be interfered with by this tower just a little bit, but it's the portion of the storm you see right here on your screen that is just kind of in between the tower. Unfortunately, that's what we're looking out for in terms of where this storm could be rotating as it moves out of Wapello County into portions of Washington and Keokuk County. So we're watching it very carefully here. We'll keep that picture up here in the weather lab to see if we can see anything. We'll also pull up our signaling camera here in just a little bit, give you another look at it. But we do want to recap. Tornado warning goes until 4 o'clock for the areas you see here. It's this one lone storm that's moving off to the northeast, and it does contain the potential to produce 2-inch diameter hail as well as a tornado. It's currently radar indicated. There have been no reports of tornadoes so far today, which is great to see, and let's hope we can keep that way. But because of that fairly evident rotation within that storm, that's why the National Weather Service decided to extend that warning from near the Ottumwa area up toward portions of especially southeastern Keokuk, western portions of Washington County. National Weather Service has updated their tornado warning for Wapello County, still seeing radar indicated rotation, and 1-inch hail is what we are seeing there as well. And so we still think that the hail is certainly a potential that we want to look out for. I'm sorry, ping pong ball sized hail is what they're indicating there. The 1-inch hail report came from near Ottumwa just a little bit ago, but it does look like this storm has intensified just a little bit, and that potential for large hail has increased a little bit once again. So this storm moving off to the northeast at 45 miles per hour. We're going to go ahead and take a little bit of a sharper look at it and put a storm track on it for you as well. Now this is for the most intense portion of the storm. You may experience some rain, hear some thunder before that, but as it tracks off to the northeast, it looks like it's going to be a pretty close call for the folks that live in Washington. You're not included in this warning yet, but the storm will pass close. Before it gets there, it's going to get to Pekin here in about 2 minutes. Closer to Talleyrand at 3:44, Keota at 3:47, Westchester close to 3:54, and Richmond at about 4:05. Atmosphere really did have its chance to reload and refresh after this morning's storms. It's gotten particularly unstable across southeast Iowa. We did see some clearing earlier today that allowed things to really sort of intensify and develop that potential for severe weather. So far, we have not seen those storms get especially intense north of Interstate 80, and that tends to track with what we're seeing right now. I'm going to go ahead and switch it to the satellite view real quick just to illustrate. It's southeast Iowa that's been seeing this area of clearing for much longer. Anywhere where you see this dark color, that's where clouds aren't. And so that is the area that has seen sunshine build up, warmth build up, dew points have increased significantly. We're in the 60s in many parts of southeast Iowa. That's all fuel for these storms, and that's why we're seeing them develop and move off to the northeast. Putting it back on the traditional radar view, we'll put a loop on there. You can see it's really this one storm with the tornado warning that's the biggest concern at this hour. A little bit of new development here in far southeast Iowa. That looks like it would stay away from the TV9 viewing area, but it's indicative of just an atmosphere that's conducive to more development. And we do have that energy building, and that is why we're seeing that. Other storms are moving off to the northeast at about 45 miles per hour as well. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is actually put a storm track on the whole thing. and that will take us through the next little while and show you when at least the initial portion of the storms will be moving through other parts of eastern Iowa. Many of these areas, again, almost none of these areas except for the area outlined in red at the bottom of your screen, are included in a warning at this hour. But up toward Tama, storms will be moving through very soon. You may be hearing some thunder. Washington, that storm down the south passes very close at about 3:53. Vinton, closer to 4:10. Cedar Rapids, closer to 4:27. Tipton, you could expect these storms to pass near your area at about 4:42. Prairie du Chien, now we're talking way up north, 5:32, and Dubuque at about 5:40. Remember, they are not moving slowly, they are moving quickly, 45, 50, 55 miles per hour. So if you do end up in a warning today, we do want you to heed that warning, take that warning seriously, and react quickly as these storms move in. Got plenty of lightning within these storms as well. You can see that moves off to the northeast too. These storms fairly energetic, and especially in that storm down toward Ottumwa, you can see there is a little cluster of lightning down there. Right now, this storm is about to cross into portions of Keokuk County and affect far southeastern Keokuk County. So let's go ahead and take a close look at the storm as it moves off to the northeast. You can see it's really close to areas near Hedrick and Martinsburg and Richland. This is all where the storm is. Hedrick, it's passed off to your southeast at this point. But if you live anywhere near Highway 78 between Martinsburg and Richland, you will want to be in shelter very, very quickly if you're not there already. The storm will also move up to areas that will be affected near and east of Lancaster. If you live on portions of County Road V5G, 280th Street, over toward 300th Avenue. And then pushing farther to the northeast, there's Talleyrand, which we've mentioned a couple of times on Storm Tracks. That's another storm, another portion of the storm that could be seeing this intense thunderstorm that is a supercell producing rotation and potentially producing a tornado. So far, radar indicated. Again, that's the good news here. We are keeping the reports to a minimum in terms of tornadic activity. Let's go ahead and put on our velocity view again. Gives the chance for us to see inside the storm, which really, really helps. That helps us to know what's going on. And again, it's pretty broad at this point in terms of its overall rotating characteristics, but it would be this area in the far southeastern portion of the storm. This storm may be wrapping rain around where the rotation is. You may not be able to see the tornado coming, and it's moving fast enough that you may not have enough time to react as this moves off to the northeast. So we really do want you to just take this warning seriously and get into shelter if you find yourself in portions of Keokuk, Washington, or Jefferson County that are included within this red box as it moves quickly off to the northeast. Back to radar view. You can see again there is large hail. The large hail portion of the storm is going to be a little bit to the north of where that rotation is. It's right there and we'll be tracking right along with it. And so both threats are there as this continues off to the northeast. You can see it's moving quickly and off, entering Keokuk County, Washington County. The far southwestern Washington County would be next, although it does look like it's moving more toward the northern side of this warning box. And so that is better news for the folks that live in the southeastern portion of it. Washington County as well would be a little bit better off until later when it may move off into northwestern Washington County, although that does draw it a little bit closer to Iowa City later. We told you earlier, close to the Iowa City area at about 4:30 and then moving on from there. Checking in with the National Weather Service, they say that this storm, because of its individual nature and its environment that it's in, it is in a pretty favorable environment at this point. They expect it to generally maintain its intensity, and until or unless it gets overtaken by those storms behind it, we would expect it to potentially have the chance to produce rotation that could turn tornadic. Again, it's these individual storms that you really, really want to watch out for. We're joining you here during this Thursday afternoon where severe weather is at least moving through parts of southeast Iowa at this point. One warning to be concerned about at this point, the warning for Wapello County likely to be expired or canceled in the very near future as this storm moves off into Keokuk and Washington counties. Northern Jefferson County, you're right on the edge of it, but that warning goes until 4 o'clock. You can see elsewhere in eastern Iowa, not much to worry about. And so that's the good sign there. Showers moving through far northern Iowa and a little bit of rain moving through portions of our western communities, maybe a rumble of thunder too, but it's the southern portion of this where we're seeing some of the strongest storms right now. Part of the reason why is because that's where the warmth has built up. That's where some of that humidity has built up, and that is why we've seen those storms intensify. Let's take a look at some of those current conditions, and that will give us a hint on who is seeing what because of the ingredients. Remember, we need moisture, we need a storm, we need something called wind shear, change of wind speed and direction with height, and that's all there. So yeah, temperatures down in the south, if you've been stuck in the clouds and rain all day, it's in the 70s down in Washington and Mount Pleasant, and you factor in the dew point, those are also in the 60s or even near 70. I think Washington's reading might be a little bit high since it doesn't match any of the ones around it, but the dew point in Cedar Rapids has gone up to 64 degrees, and so that sets the stage for those storms to maintain their intensity as they move further to the northeast. Another thing that does is the broken cloud cover. That's starting to fill in a bit in more places as we get these storms developed and they develop those higher level clouds. But for now, we're just not seeing anything ominous on the Cedar Rapids city cam. Sigourney may be a different matter here. They're starting to see some rain down there. And they're on the portion of the storm where it's going to be tough to see much. It's kind of obscure because the heavy part of the storm is right between them and the area of rotation. And so Sigourney is not going to give us a great view either. I'm going to pull up Washington here in a second. That may give us a slightly better look in terms of what's going on with this storm as we peer off to the west using our CityCam network, something that only we here in eastern Iowa have and gives us a really good view all around the area. Here's Washington. That's going to be generally looking off toward that direction already. But I'm going to go ahead and take off these current conditions. Again, look at the contrast, 52 degrees in Waterloo, 72 in Washington. Certainly ominous skies being accented a little bit by the darker colors and the brighter sunshine in the foreground. But as that sun gets a little obscured, you can see that balances out just a bit. And I'm going to go ahead and shift the camera a little bit, see if we can get a better picture. It's going to be distant, but it is the portion of the storm that we're looking at as it moves likely just northwest of Washington. So yeah, now we're looking off to the west. We don't have a particularly clear view of it at this point, but we will be watching our city cams, making sure to get them to you as soon as we are able to get more information from them. So is the tornado warning for portions of now Keokuk, Jefferson, and Washington counties that goes until 4 o'clock this afternoon, another 25 minutes here. It's moving off to the northeast and we'll be providing with it that potential for a 2-inch sized hail, which is about the size of a lime. That's kind of the average. And it's also going to provide the potential for a tornadic development. So far, so good in terms of reports, but the potential is certainly there. Let's go ahead and put our velocity scope on. Yeah, that's starting to look potentially a little more dangerous in that far southeastern portion of the storm. I'm going to go ahead and take that off and pinpoint just a little bit closer. It's that portion of the storm down near 230th Avenue, just about to cross over near Ollie. If you live in Ollie or near the Ollie area in portions of Keokuk County, we really want you to get into shelter now if you haven't already. That means lowest floor of your home, basement, shield your head, make sure to stay safe as the storm moves off to the northeast. You can see it's this area here. That's what's going to track very close to Ollie. It may already be very close to there. The radar updates pretty quickly, but it doesn't update every second. And so there always is going to be a little bit of a time lag here in terms of giving a couple of minutes in between scans. Let's go ahead and put a track on this storm as it moves off to the northeast to let folks know who's in the path. We'll go ahead and put the velocity view on primarily because that is what we're most concerned with in terms of this storm producing a tornado. And so as it does, it will be moving very close to Ollie right now. If you live near Bond Hill County Park, it will be passing near your area in about 10 minutes. Talleyrand closer to 348. Statler Woods closer to 358. Westchester closer to 359. So moving into portions of Washington County with Lexington at about 402, which is outside the warning area. Does look like this storm will pass through the warning potentially before it expires. And so I will be interested to see what the National Weather Service decides to do. And that is something that they are watching very, very closely. It does look like they are thinking that the tornado warning, or rather the tornadic potential with this storm, could approach southeastern Johnson County within about 30 to 45 minutes. And that looks pretty reliable based on the information that we have as well, looking here on pinpoint Doppler radar. And so if the storm maintains its intensity, which there's no clear indication that it wouldn't, that would take it into portions of those areas too. And so we'll go ahead and put a storm track a little further to the northeast. And yeah, that storm's going to come close to Iowa City at about 4:30. West Liberty, you're going to be pretty close to it as well, off in Muscatine County at about 4:41. Atalissa closer to 4:47. And so we really are wanting to give you an early heads up. These storms are moving fast today. And so if you're within the path of this storm, but not yet in a warning, you don't necessarily have to seek shelter just yet. But we do want you to keep a close eye on what's going on as these storms move off to the northeast. And so they will do so, and they will continue to be moving at about 45 to 50 miles per hour. Again, the threat not only includes that tornadic development, but it also includes the potential for very large hail. We want you to be well aware of what's going on down there in terms of that 2-inch hail potential. And it's moving off to the northeast again within that storm, just slightly to the north of that. So Iowa City, if you move and miss out on the rotating part of the storm, you could get involved in the hail instead. I know that you just went through that a few weeks ago in portions of the city, so it would be unfortunate, but that is going on. Gathering some new information from the National Weather Service. They have no new changes to this warning, but the Wapello County has been gone ahead and canceled early, as was expected, as that storm has moved out. The overall rotating parts of the storm still there, although it does look potentially a little bit less organized than it did for a moment, although it's still very much there. And so we do want you to treat this warning with respect as this storm moves toward you. Again, it's about to move closer to the county line between Keokuk and Washington. If you live on portions of this highway, Iowa 77, that's where the storm will be crossing. And then it'll be moving off into western Washington County as well as it tracks off to the northeast. Go ahead and put that in motion to show you. It's that area between the greens and the brighter greens. I'm actually going to go ahead and change our view real quick. And that sort of takes into account the motion of the storm. And so we've always talked about the reds and greens of the storm. And so that kind of gives you a more traditional view of what's going on in the storm once it takes away that motion so that it knows what the storm is experiencing, not necessarily what the radar sees. So it's kind of a bit of a change there. New update from the National Weather Service. They have indicated that this storm still has the potential to produce golf ball-sized hail and the potential for a tornado. So they've continued that tornado warning. Looks like it's still radar indicated, still moving at about 50 miles per hour. And you can see it's still producing potentially some strong winds too. You may see a strong wind gust as this storm moves through, and that potential again for golf ball sized hail. So portions included Harper, Kyoto, Talleyrand, and Rubio, all towns that we've mentioned here as we've tracked it. We're gonna go ahead and pop back here a little bit on pinpoint Doppler radar, put on the traditional radar view, and put on a new storm track just to let you know what we're seeing with the latest information. Has picked up a little bit of forward speed, and so that is moving off to the northeast. Again, that gets you close to Talleyrand at about 348. So we're moving in very, very closely. Talleyrand, if you are not down on the lowest level of your home or the basement, we do want you to get there as soon as you can. And then they are moving off to the northeast into Washington County, Stadler Woods, not in this warning. Washington, not in this warning, but it'll be passing close to your area as well. Kelowna, also way downstream, but we are just giving you an early heads up as this storm approaches. 410 for Kelowna. Riverside at about 416, Hills closer to 422. And that's what we were saying, about 45 minutes from when we were just discussing this about 10 minutes ago, getting close to that southeastern portion of Johnson County, especially down toward Hills and Lone Tree. Plenty of lightning too. It's been moving quickly, so you see those lightning indicators over the blank area of the map, but that is just to account for the lightning that's already moved through. It's going to produce that. You will hear it for sure as it moves through, and that is another portion of the storm that you want to treat with respect. Lightning is deadly. We don't want you to get caught and get yourself in trouble or get hurt or worse at this point, because lightning is a killer as well. We're going to take a look at the velocity view. Check on that. Of course, that is the portion of the storm that we are here on the air for its potential rotation. You can see it's tightened up quite a bit, potentially. We don't have any reports at this point, and we will take a look at our Sigourney CityCam. I'm going to see what I can see and potentially move it around. At this point, we are checking on the information that we have. Meteorologist AJ Rickman also joins me now. AJ, you were covering the storm for our sister station in Ottumwa, KYOU, which we are now also simulcasting on. It's been a pretty consistent storm so far.
It has been. It has been moving through an environment where it's been easy for it to maintain its strength, and it is pretty much exactly what it has done. Since it has moved through the Ottumwa area, looks like the National Weather Service has tacked down the hail size just a little bit, but still, an 1 3/4 hail, that is still a storm to be respected and a storm to be careful with. If it is moving towards your area, again, you are really going to want to make sure that you are getting out of the way of it, getting to that lowest level of your home, whether it is your basement, or if you don't have a basement, again, moving down into a bathroom or an interior closet on the lowest level of your home.
If you'd like to go ahead and take Max 3, I believe you're on, AJ. Max 3?
Yep. So go ahead and switch over to Max 3 again. We've got a kind of a look at the radar of the storm here again as it is tracking off to the north and east. For our environment to really heat up, that warmth and the addition of some moisture as well. Got pretty warm, pretty humid down in those situations, or down in those areas south of Interstate 80, and the results, I mean, you can see them there on the screen. They speak for themselves. Showers and storms developed and formed, and they have been able to take advantage of this favorable environment, and that's why we now have that one storm system that is currently out ahead of the main line. Again, that storm system out ahead as why, or the primary reason that we are on air with you. That is for that tornado warning. 1 3/4 hail, radar indicated rotation. At this point, haven't seen any reports from spotters or evidence on radar of a tornado on the ground, but still a storm you're going to want to take seriously. Of course, that could change very quickly. So if you're in the path of this storm, play it safe, get down to your safe spot, again, whether that's your basement or an interior closet or bathroom on the lowest level of your home. Now, behind that main line, of course, we've been keeping an eye on a line of storms as well that is currently moving down into the Ottumwa area, recently moved through Oskaloosa. That line of storms does have a tornado, or excuse me, not a severe thunderstorm warning on it, just to the south of the Ottumwa area. But whether you're under a severe thunderstorm warning or not, as that line approaches your area, still make sure that you are getting out of the way of it, getting inside, and ideally getting away from any windows or exterior facing windows as you are as that storm approaches your area. So again, a very active weather day. Meteorologist Corey Thompson, I know you've been kind of working on city cams a little bit. How are things looking on that?
Well, let's take a look. Max 1 shows us Sigourney, which is staying well to the west of this storm, but we're looking generally to the east. And I'm going to go ahead and shift it to where it's due east. And you can see that's looking off toward the heavier part of the storm on the left side of your screen. And bear with us as we make some adjustments here and do a little bit of zooming. You can see this is perhaps the part of the storm that we want to have eyes on, and we've got a good look. It does include quite a bit of heavy rain, and the portion of the storm that is rotating perhaps a little bit obscured due to that heavy rain. And so it's going to be a little tough potentially to see if we've got tornadic development within the storm. If we did, it would be pretty much toward the middle of the screen. But again, there seems to be a decent amount of rain potentially obscuring that. So we'll keep a close eye on that. But at this point, no imminent indications as we look closely. And I'm just sort of observing as you are here, as we're watching along here in the studio and here at home. This storm certainly does have the potential. It looks pretty ominous on radar. I believe we have some pictures of large hail from Ottumwa, if I'm not mistaken. Is that available? There they are. You can see some hail on the ground and some other pictures. Yeah, it doesn't have a reference, but you can kind of just see it yourself. Those are pretty big hailstones no matter what size your hand is. And so those are pretty substantial, and that does track with the concept of these storms having hail up to 2 inches in diameter potentially. And so that is something to look out for as well. Thank you for the viewer who sent us that picture. If you have pictures and you are in a safe position to do so, you can send them to us on UNews. Go to kcrg.com, find that link. You can also hit the submit button on the lower right corner of your screen in terms of the KCRG First Alert weather app. Tornado warning's been shrunk a little bit, it looks like, AJ, but no new update downstream at this point, though. We're just nearing the end of this 4 o'clock expiration time.
Yes, we're getting pretty close to that point. Another thing I've noticed with this warning, looks like they have downgraded the hail size just a little bit, down to 1.25 inches now, which is going to be about $half size, but still large enough hail that it can certainly put some dents in car hoods and things such as that. Still, 1.25 inch hail, certainly enough to do some damage, something to take seriously, even if it is not the 2-inch hail we were looking at with this storm system earlier. And again, keep in mind, it does still have that radar indicated rotation. That is, again, why the tornado warning is on it, but yet another reason to take this storm seriously and go ahead and just take cover and get out of the way of it if you were in the path of it. This storm, again, even if it has kind of shrunk a little bit in terms of the hail size, still in a very favorable environment for maintaining its strength and potentially getting stronger as a possibility. But certainly maintaining its strength, because again, we've seen a little bit of clearing, and that has allowed temperatures south of Interstate 80 to really climb into the 60s and low 70s, dew points climbing as well, and that warm, moist air provides quite a bit of fuel for these storms to continue developing and continue growing and moving across. So again, the type of thing, certainly want to take it seriously as this storm system continues to move through. But of course, we'll be keeping a close eye on this tornado warning. Of course, it hasn't been renewed at this point, but that is, again, something we'll stay on the air with you until this tornado warning has expired, and then we'll continue coverage as long as there's severe thunderstorm warnings with our KCRG streaming as well.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at Max 1 and just kind of give, again, a broad overview of what's going on. And it's just this one tornado warning in the TV9 viewing area that AJ just described. That may change here in the next couple of minutes, but in terms of other storms, there are no additional warnings. Now, tornado watch does continue for many areas until 8 o'clock tonight. Does not include Waterloo, but pretty much everywhere to the east and everywhere to the south. And so if you're any of those areas that haven't seen storms yet, the potential is there for storms to develop and intensify. But at this point, so far, we are just barely staying outside of that. Now, at this point, we do have a picture from our DOT camera network of heavy rain along Interstate 80. That's closer to Victor. And so, yeah, there's an image of it as trucks and cars navigate that area. No warnings along Interstate 80, but certainly the potential for some very heavy precipitation. If we can go ahead and go back to Max 1, I'm going to go ahead and give you a storm track for this line behind that lead storm. So this is not for the lead storm. Some areas will see that lead storm first, and that will be tracking ahead of it. But the broader area of thunderstorms that's moving off to the east-northeast, that is included and will affect portions such as Vinton. At 412, you may be seeing some storm development very nearby already. Areas near Center Point, you would be looking at this at about 426. Cedar Rapids closer to 430, which has been pretty consistent as these storms move off to the northeast. They haven't changed all that much in terms of speed or location, which is good. Lisbon at 446, Manchester 454, Tipton closer to 508, Dubuque still about 542. So that's a little bit later than what we were seeing before, but certainly not much difference, still in that 5 to 6 o'clock hour. Within that, there are a couple of stronger storms too. There is an area in northeastern Poweshiek County that's showing perhaps very minor signs of rotation. There is an area in portions of southern Iowa County, south of Interstate 80, that would be showing a decent amount of wind, perhaps. No warning at this point, but indications on radar that there could be some pretty strong and gusty winds. And then moving off to the northeast from there, that's where we could see that impacting portions of Johnson, Iowa, and Lynn counties too. But again, the tornado warning is the main focus at this point as that continues officially for another 7 minutes. National Weather Service, of course, will be making their decision here shortly in terms of whether they want to extend this tornado warning, keep it a severe thunderstorm warning, or what they want to do. It's up to them in terms of those warnings themselves.
Absolutely, and of course, again, a couple minutes until we have that decision here on if they continue that warning or not. But if we can switch back over to Max 3, I decided to take a look at this storm from the other side. Of course, recently we took a look at it through our Sigourney City cam, and now we're looking at it from our Washington City cam that is looking in at the southeastern side of the storm moving through, and you can see not seeing any evidence of what would look like wall cloud or any lowering at this point, but certainly a very dark, ominous sky that you can see that it's off to the due west of Washington. This storm is expected to pass by Washington, and it'll be missing them to their to the northwest of the city. But again, as we kind of just slowly move the camera from right to left across here, you can see the storms it's moving through, of course, has lots of heavy rain, has a history of producing large hail with it, and of course that rotation that we've been keeping a close eye on here for quite some time now. But again, certainly an ominous storm when looking at it from a distance, and the type of storm that if you are in the direct path of it and going to be impacted by it, certainly going to want to make sure that you are sheltering lowest level of your home or an interior closet or bathroom, kind of getting out of the way of it as effectively as you can.
Yes, indeed. And on Max 1, we'll show you a storm track here as the storm prepares to exit the tornado warning that was in effect until 4 o'clock. Stadler Woods, 357, Kelowna, closer to 410, Riverside, close to 417. Now, Iowa City, it's going to be a pretty close call. Southeast side of the city would be the portion that would be most in line to see the effects of this storm, and that would be toward 428, and Newport closer to 435 as we get farther along into Johnson County. At this point, no warnings for the areas that we just named, pretty much everybody except for Stadler Woods. And then even they are outside of this warning. So we are moving through portions of western Washington County, about to enter northern Washington County too. Storm very much showing its intensity, still has rotation, but at this point, no reports of tornadic development, which is good news as it's moving off to the northeast. We are awaiting the decision from the National Weather Service, but still indicating potential for some pretty large hail, up to $half sized, and the potential for rotation in this storm. That may have eased off again just a little bit. We'll look at the velocity view here to show you what's going on there. Now, it's not as perhaps focused as it was just a moment ago, or at least not in the same sort of concerning way. I'll switch it over to this view as well to give you that bigger or somewhat clearer picture. And you can see it's a little bit broad, although again, areas near Westchester, I would certainly be in your safe shelter if you live in Westchester, even though you're outside of this warning box. Well, it looks like you are no longer outside of this warning box. The National Weather Service has issued a new tornado warning, and that's going to go until 4:45. This includes northern Washington County as well as southern and southeastern Johnson County. Still warned for the tornadic potential as well as $half-sized hail as the storm continues off to the northeast. It has a forward speed of about 45 miles per hour, so we'll put on a fresh storm track. If you're just joining us now and you just received an emergency alert on your phone from the KCRG weather app or from wireless emergency alerts, this takes us through the next 45 minutes or so. Close to Lexington at about 4:03. Kelowna, we've mentioned you a couple of times. Now's the time to head to your safe spot. 4:13 there. Iowa Township Park, which is outside in rural portions of Washington County near Riverside. We're looking at 4:20, same in Riverside. Blue Top Ridge, which is of course the golf course on the east side of Riverside, close to 4:24. And Lone Tree, closer to 4:30. That is assuming the storm maintains its strength and maintains its potential to produce a tornado. But if you live within that area, you do certainly want to seek shelter at this point. That involves getting to the lowest level of your home. If you have a basement, even better. If you don't, that's okay. You can get into the interior room on the lowest floor, a closet, a bathroom's not a bad idea, but we just want you to stay away from is outer walls. Stay away from windows. Anything that could be damaged by the storm and leave you exposed, that's where we don't want you to be. Grab something to protect your head and neck, something like a blanket, a pillow, or towels, or wear a helmet. I know it sounds kind of silly, but if it helps you stay safe, it's not a bad thing. Avoid those windows, as we mentioned. It's not a bad idea to grab your shoes, too. In the unlikely event that your house is damaged by a tornado, which even within a tornado warning, that is still an unlikely event, we would want you to be able to exit your safe place and stay safe, of course. And that is one way to do it.
I heard that we did just get some video of hail from Ottumwa. If there's any way we could get that pulled up, you can take a look at, again, this storm that we are currently having the warning for. There you have it. Hail falling in the Ottumwa area from this storm as it moved through Ottumwa quite some time ago now. It has moved from Ottumwa now into eastern Iowa. But you can see that's, again, very heavy rain with that storm as it's been moving through. And again, some hail that looks like it was falling as that storm was moving through. And again, we've gotten reports of 1.5 to 2 inch hail from this storm at times. Current warning is for 1.25 inch hail, but wow, there you go. There are those stones. Look at that.
Yep, pretty big ones, as we were kind of expecting with this storm. And so there's a little proof of life in terms of the storm in Ottumwa, and that is potentially still moving into portions of Washington and Johnson County. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you were currently in the northwestern corner of Washington County, this storm currently is moving through. Looks like the storm is trying to produce a little bit of, seriously, something that I haven't seen recently with it, trying to produce just a little bit of a appendage-looking thing down there on the bottom side of it. Again, as we've seen, it has maintained rotation, which is why it has been continuing to produce tornado warnings, or the National Weather Service, rather, has continued to issue tornado warnings for this storm. So again, right now, the center of that rotation looks to be just off to the west of Westchester. If you are in the Westchester area, go ahead and make sure you're in your safe space. Again, like Corey has mentioned, that is going to be your basement. If you don't have a basement, lowest level of your home, down in your bathroom, closet, somewhere with as many walls between you and the outside as you can manage to find, in addition to making sure you're as far away from any windows, especially windows that face the outdoors, as possible. But again, this storm does have a history of producing rotation, and it looks like we do now have a new severe thunderstorm warning that has been issued.
Yeah, pretty big one. If we check out Max 1, it includes a large portion of Iowa County, as well as northern Keokuk, northwestern Washington, much of Johnson County, and southern Lynn County, including most of the Cedar Rapids metro area. This goes until 5 o'clock. It's for the line behind the storm that AJ was just talking about. And so that has the potential to produce some gusty winds. We've seen that potential start to increase a little bit as we looked at it on radar. It's starting to line up, and it's starting to show a little bit of a sign that it could produce those gusty winds. And that's why the National Weather Service has that in place now for the next hour for the area outlined in that flashing orange box. We'll give that a storm track as well to let folks know what to expect if you live in one of those areas. Your phone may be going off there too, and so we'll let you know. Williamsburg at 4:05, Kinross closer to 4:11. The Amanas between about 4:14 to 4:21, depending on your exact colony. As we get toward the eastern Iowa Airport on the southern side, southwestern portion of the Cedar Rapids metro, you're closer to 4:43. Iowa City, especially Coralville as well, North Liberty would be involved at about 4:49. Mount Vernon in far southeastern Lynn County, you're not in the morning, but it'll be close to 5 o'clock as these storms approach from the southwest, again moving briskly at about 40 to 50 miles per hour.
And we've seen these storms maintain their strength pretty effectively throughout the afternoon. If we take a quick look at Max 3, we'll kind of go have a look at why exactly these storms have been able to maintain their strength for such a long time. So if you look at our visible satellite here, all the white stuff, of course, drifting across your screen is going to be your cloud cover. Right here, stretching from Cedar Rapids down towards Iowa City and Washington, that's going to be cloud cover associated with this line of storms that we're tracking. It's just off to the east of those clouds, however, all these dark colors right here, that's clearing. Skies are breaking up, we're getting a little bit of sunshine that's reaching all the way down to the surface, and that's allowed temperatures to really climb in that area. So as proof of that, let's have a look at current temperatures across the area. Maquoketa up to now 70 degrees, 70s in Iowa City, Washington, and Mount Pleasant, 67 in Cedar Rapids. Dew points climbing as well. So we've got lots of warmth, lots of moisture, and these storms are currently moving into that environment where it is warm and exactly what we've seen over the last better than an hour now. But with this line of storms that is now moving towards the Cedar Rapids, Iowa City area, currently hitting Williamsburg, you can see that as it's currently lining up, it's kind of got that bow-shaped feature to it, where you've got your, kind of that, again, feature that looks like a bow segment or a segment of the line kind of bowing out. That's going to be where you have some pretty strong winds that are associated with that, and that's part of the reason why the National Weather Service has issued that severe thunderstorm warning for damaging winds up to 60 miles an hour, and these storms do again have the potential for producing some hail as well. Of course, 1-inch hail with this line of storms moving through, and then with this storm system down here that has had a tornado warning on it since it was moving through Ottumwa, looking at hail up to a $half sized hail or 1.25 inch hail with that as well. Again, that storm moving off to the northeast at around 45 to 50 miles an hour over the last half hour to an hour. And again, this storm here that we are focusing on with the tornado warning does have some radar indicated rotation with it, but haven't seen any evidence of spotter reports or seeing any evidence on radar rather of this storm right here having a tornado that has reached the ground. But again, still under a tornado warning or has a tornado warning on it for radar indicated rotation, and is still a storm you are going to want to take seriously and make sure that you are getting out of the way of this storm if it is moving towards your area. Again, moving towards Riverside currently, but also currently tracking through the northeastern corner of
Portions of Washington County, it looks like, and in Johnson too.
yes.
It does show that you've got those warning areas. Almost all of Johnson County is looking to be included in one of those warnings, as AJ was describing. If we go to, let's pop up if we can. I'm asking folks in the control room. Let's put Max 1 in a big box, and if you could put Washington County in a smaller box, that would be great. That's in Max 2. Max 2 has the city cam pulled up. And so we can kind of keep an eye on the storm at the same time as keeping an eye on the radar. And you can see if we use the Quad Cities radar site, AJ, it's got that shape for sure.
Oh, wow.
That is the best it's looked all day in terms of storm structure from a broader perspective. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the storm is doing on the inside using our velocity view. And you can see this is probably the tightest rotation we've seen in some time as well. As it moves off to the northeast, it's passing just north of 190th Street. It's about to approach Highway 1, probably in the area of 170th as it moves off to the northeast. Now, again, we don't have a report of a tornado on the ground with this storm, but it certainly is showing signs that the rotation has increased a little bit, and that will provide some dangerous conditions for portions of Washington County. Now, again, Washington itself, you're staying out of it. It's passing to your south, but Riverside, you are very much not. This is going to pass very close to you, and so we'll go ahead and put a storm track on it. We just got a fresh scan, so this is going to be the latest information. Riverside close to 418, over toward Hills closer to 425, and Lone Tree closer to 429. So we do want you to please seek shelter as this storm shows some signs that it may be strengthening just a little bit, and so that's why we are looking at that area very carefully and with an especially keen eye, just because of the way that the storm has evolved and shown its ability to maintain its strength. It's really got that hook echo shape to it, as is sort of classically described. You got the main part of the storm up here, and then you've got the overall hook shape coming in down here. And so that is the supercell structure. And so this storm has a decent potential to potentially produce that tornadic activity. Now we've got a decent look at it too in the lower right corner of your screen, and bear with me as I move that camera around. It doesn't move particularly smoothly, and it is blowing in the wind a little bit. This is from a distance, of course, and if that rain is wrapping around, it would be tougher to see what's going on. I think if we look here, that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of where the rotation may be. There may be, if we go ahead and put Max 2 up full screen, it's tough. It's tough to see, but there is the potential that we're seeing a little bit of activity that AJ, what do you think?
That's kind of what I'm thinking, right where your arrow is, right in there. That looks like a little bit of a lowering. Looks like that would be the chunk of that storm where if it were to produce a tornado, that looks like that would be where it would drop one. Looks like the clouds are certainly trying to lower right there. Again, a little bit tough to see, especially because everything is so dark and gray there on the horizon. But again, that does look kind of like the lowering that you would look for.
Yep, and it, certainly at the very least, those scary-looking clouds, as we refer to them, but this would be looking toward the portion of the storm that has rotation with it. It's just, again, a little tough to see. The contrast is rough when storms are at this time of day. Sun isn't necessarily shining on the front side of it, which gives you a really good, clean view. And so that is something we're keeping a close eye on, though. Certainly something to watch.
Absolutely, and what we've kind of been talking about with these storms as they move through, even though it is a storm that has radar indicated rotation, the reason that we say that it is still a storm to take very seriously is because of just how quickly things can change. This storm at this point still is just radar indicated with the rotation, but it did not take long for the structure of the storm to really change and really turn and change into a shape that, at least to my eyes, looks a lot more conducive to potentially producing a tornado in very short order. Again, at this point, still radar indicated rotation. Been checking to see if any spotter reports of a tornado. Have not seen any at this point. But again, still that storm in a hurry really created that hook-like feature to it that you would expect to see and want to see, at least, well, you wouldn't want to see it in terms of the storm, in terms of not wanting the storm to produce a tornado.
Mm-hmm.
But when the storms do produce that hook-like appendage, that if we can switch over to Max 1 really quick, we have a good look at that storm on radar.
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
Yeah,
And so that's what AJ's talking about. That
Yep.
shape with the hook. We'll draw it again. Main part of the storm, hail producing, Kelowna, possibly seeing that hail moving through right now. And then you get down to this lower corner and you get that shape that's shaped like a hook. You can see that portion, and that's exactly where the rotation is taking place too. Again, looks like a potentially pretty dangerous storm at this point. Still just radar indicated, but the radar is indicating rotation. That could create some trouble for folks that are in the path of it. And we're talking folks like Riverside and areas surrounding that as this storm moves off to the northeast. And you can see it's about to move near Richmond. It's going to be a very close call there. If you're not in your area of shelter already, we want you to be so right now. As that moves farther to the north, it'll cross Highway 22 either west or very near the city of Riverside. And then it's going to move up closer to Highway 218 to the north of that. So folks near River Junction, east of the highway, it's, again, just going to be a very close call. We don't want you to have to mess around with this, and instead you should be treating it with pretty serious respect as we see at least some sign of this storm potentially producing a tornado as it continues to gather strength. I'm going to look, our debris detection, no sign of that, at least at this point, which is good news. But in terms of the rotation that AJ was showing you, it's still there, and it still is very evident that we could get that going in this storm. Another view of it, it really is this portion of the storm that would be rain wrapped, so you would not see the storm coming in terms of likely being able to witness the funnel before it moves into your area, but it would be this portion that's just near Richmond and moving off to the northeast. So that is the ominous portion of the storm for sure.
Absolutely, and like you said, Corey, one of the storm where it really would be difficult to see that tornado. If it did drop one, it would be, like you said, at least partially rain wrapped. Looks like you've got a decent view of it pulled up at this point on our Washington City cam.
Yeah, we're going to zoom in a little bit here as we get closer. Storm again passing safely north of Washington. You're not included in this tornado warning, but it's pretty much due north of the Washington area now. Again, just right along Highway 1 as it moves out of Washington toward Kelowna. And again, this would be the portion of the storm. It's a little tough to see, and the rotation on this storm, if it's producing a tornado, it would be right along where we're looking at our city cam.
We'll switch back over to that city cam. There we go.
Oh yeah, thank you. There's the view. Yeah, it is potentially within those clouds. Again, the portion of the storm that could produce that rotation well within the view of our camera, but it's just hard to tell based on the color that we've got in the sky. Those grays tend to blend together, and so we'll just have to deal with what we've got. But It is what we're tracking here and why that tornado warning continues until about 4:30 today.
It is, but looking at the camera, I can see kind of a lighter patch of clouds. It's in between that cell phone tower that's in the middle of your screen off to the right side of it. There you go, now pretty focused in the center there. I can't quite tell if it's moving in a rotating way or just a left to right way, but certainly an area of cloud cover there that's a little bit lighter in color, moving pretty fast from left to right across the screen from what I can see. Again, still really tough to tell in terms of the exact degree of what these clouds are doing in terms of if they're trying to produce a wall cloud or what type of rotation we're looking at, just because, like you've talked about, not great color contrast, a little difficult to see what we're looking at there, but this would be the chunk of the storm that if it were to produce a tornado, this is where it would come from.
Let's do the double box if we can. Max 1, big picture. Max 2, small picture, so we can get a look at that Washington camera and don't lose our eyes on it. But there is a new severe thunderstorm warning that does include the city of Washington. So while you escape the first storm that has that rotation potential, there's that line of storms that's been hanging around behind it that's moving at about the same speed, and it has the potential to produce gusty winds of about 60 miles per hour. If we get max 2 in that lower box, we are looking at the areas that have been relatively rain-free so far getting involved in this. We'll show you the storm track with this storm as it moves to the northeast at 55 miles per hour. It is picking up a little bit of speed, which would actually be a good thing. If we could get this storm to overtake that lead storm, it would reduce the threat of tornadoes, at least from that storm. So if you live in Richland, 417, Brighton at about 427, Salina close to 430, Washington itself close to 435. And then we get toward Ainsworth at 443, Olds at about 448, and nearer to Columbus Junction at about 455. And so all of these areas include in this new severe thunderstorm warning. But the reason that we are here with you on the air and streaming on all of our digital streaming platforms, kcrg.com and the KCRG apps, is this tornado warning. Still radar indicated. We do not have a spotter report of a tornado on the ground, but there are a lot of indications that there is pretty strong rotation. And so that is what we want you to watch. And it would be this area on the far southwestern portion of the storm where we would have the potential. It's that right there where the rotation within the storm on radar is pretty significant. And so we are looking at a storm that could produce a tornado at any time if it isn't already. It's very possible that we are missing it from spotter perspective and our CityCam perspective, just due to the rain that is in and around this storm. And so if you live in Riverside, you really got to get to your basement at this point, or your lowest level of your home. If you live in portions of Johnson County, near Hills or southeast of Hills, we want you to be in a safe place as well as that storm continues off to the northeast, still moving at about 45 miles per hour. Is that correct, AJ?
Let me verify really quickly.
About 40.
Yes. Yeah, about 40.
Yep, take cover now as this storm approaches. The rotation's still there and likely rain obscured. So you would likely not see the funnel or the tornado coming before it gets to you.
Absolutely, and again, make sure you're taking cover with this storm, but making sure that you're also prepared for the line of storms that comes in behind this. Again, if you are in the path of this tornado warned storm, you are also in the path of the line of storms that is coming in right behind it. So really quickly, if we switch the big screen over to Max 3 and keep an eye, or if we can keep the little box open of Max 2 so we can keep tabs on that storm. There we go. So this kind of gives you a big picture view of what we're looking at as these storms are moving through. Again, you've got your tornado warned storm that is currently approaching, getting close to the south side of Iowa City. Looks like it'll pass to or at least the core of the storm will pass just to the south of downtown from what it's looking like currently, but certainly going to be a very close call there. Play it safe if you're in Iowa City and go ahead and get to your safe spot, not just because of this tornado warned storm moving through, but again, because of that line of storms that is coming in behind it. That line of storms capable of producing hail and damaging winds as well. And of course, we do, again, have that tornado threat that is ongoing with this storm that has had tornado warnings on it again since we started tracking it with that first tornado warning that was near the Ottumwa area. So for quite some time now, the storm has had rotation with it. At this point, it does look like it has been radar indicated for most, if not all, of the duration of it, but there was a period of time there where the storm system, or the storm cell did kind of look like it was trying to situate itself or position itself in such a way and kind of change its structure a little bit to where it might produce a tornado. At this point, again, still haven't seen much in the way of radar evidence of it.
However, we did just get some information from the National Weather Service. They do have reports of a tornado on the ground south of Kelowna, or there was at the very least. So the storm perhaps has at least produced a tornado at this point. And so if you live anywhere near Kelowna, we've been telling you to get into shelter. Same applies to Riverside and Hills. Hills would be along the line of where this storm is headed.
Absolutely, and we'll go ahead and get a fresh storm track on this portion of the storm that, again, would be your portion of the storm that would produce a tornado, moving off at about 40 miles an hour. Let me verify that is correct information.
Still 40, yep.
Still 40, okay, so yeah, let's get a storm track put on this. And again, on this portion of the storm that does have that rotation within it, that would be that largest threat for producing a tornado. Over the next 45 minutes, it will be moving off to the northeast towards Hills by the time we get to 429. By the time we get to 449, approaching West Liberty, Cedar Valley by 457, Cedar Valley Park by 458, and getting towards Rochester by the time we get to 5 p.m. Again, this storm has been rotating and had tornado warnings with it. Again, some possible evidence there that it might have at one point produced a tornado and had a tornado on the ground. So a storm that does need to be taken seriously if you are in the path of it. Again, lowest level of your home is going to be where you need to get out of the way of it, making sure that you are either in your basement or ground floor of your home, in a closet or a bathroom, somewhere where you are able to kind of duck out of the way of this storm. And again, make sure you're staying away from any windows as well until the storm passes by. But again, behind this initial tornado warn storm, still looking at that line of storms that is moving through, also capable of producing some hail as well as some damaging winds.
Yep, and that storm, again, reports from other folks of a tornado close to Riverside, down in that area of northern Washington County. So still have some spotters observing it at this point, or at least very recently. And so it's those areas where at least a funnel cloud is taking place, but at least intermittent rotation that's being observed by folks right in the area. So the good news is that we at least have people that have a look at it, and that will show that we should see, at least if something happens, we'll know about it. That's the good news, at least at this point. And the rotation stays fairly strong within the storm, both at the low levels where tornadoes form and up higher in the storm, which would further facilitate the potential for large hail. So if you live in Iowa City, again, portions of the city south of Highway 6 are included in this tornado warning. It does look like the tornadic portion of the storm may miss you just to the southeast, but it's that area where large hail would be possible right along there too. So you certainly do want to still seek shelter. Severe thunderstorm warning continues for pretty much all of Johnson County to the northwest of this tornado warning. No matter what, it does look like strong storms are about to head through.
Absolutely, and it looks like currently that area of rotation is just to the southwest of Hills, and again, just very, very close to Riverside in that area. So if you are in Hills and Riverside, you need to be in your safe space now. Again, basement, lowest level of your home, in a bathroom or a closet, ideally as far away from you can get from any windows that would face to the outside. That is, again, with the storm system that is moving off to the northeast. Again, had spotters keeping an eye on it. At this point, not seeing anything on our that would indicate debris being lofted into this storm. But again, a storm that has been rotating. Some spotter reports that it would have, again, potentially produced a tornado at some point, and again, has that rotation with it. Type of situation, type of storm, you are going to want to make sure you are getting out of the way of it, getting down to your safe spot.
Yep, so let's take a broad overview on Max 1. If you can keep the boxes, that would be great, and put Max 1 in the spotlight there. This is what we're dealing with at this hour. 3 to 4 warnings in effect right now. Just 3 warnings, excuse me. 2 severe thunderstorm warnings, 1 tornado warning. The one in the center where the individual storm south of Iowa City is tracking, that goes until 4:45 this afternoon. That's for an observed tornado near the Kelowna and Riverside area. If you live in Riverside, Hills, or any surrounding portions of Johnson County and far northern Washington County, you should be in shelter now as this storm continues off to the northeast. To the north of that, there is a severe thunderstorm warning that includes a good portion of Lynn, the southern Lynn County, most of Johnson County, eastern half of Iowa County, and northern portions of Keokuk County. 60-mile-per-hour winds possible there. The National Weather Service does include at least a tornado possible tag with that. There are small areas of rotation within the main line of the storm. However, none are at least evident in terms of imminently producing an area of rotation that would cause a tornado to form. So that's the good news there, but still very strong gusty winds, perhaps some hail up to quarter sized. It moves into those areas within the next 10 to 15 minutes. Down to the south, we have another severe thunderstorm warning for the southern end of this line. That includes most of the rest of Washington County, as well as portions of Louisa County and northern Jefferson, northern Henry County. This goes until 5:15 tonight. Again, the threat mainly is for strong gusty winds as this storm tracks off to the northeast. They're all moving in about 40 to 50 miles per hour. So I'm actually going to take us out well on a wide view and then take a look at where these storms are headed in general in terms of the overall arc and line of storms. This will take us through the next hour or two as these storms continue to cut a path across southeastern portions of the viewing area, right where that severe weather outlook was as it tracks to the northeast. So Iowa City, you're seeing some rain, potentially some hail in portions of the city already. More storms headed your way at about 4:35. Anamosa closer to 4:54. Monticello close to 5:04. Cascade at about 5:18. Dubuque closer to 5:47. So that's a little bit later than we've been discussing so far this afternoon, but it's still headed your way. You'll at least get heavy rain, the potential for some gusty winds. Dickeyville, that's in southwest Wisconsin. Grant County, 5:56. DeWitt over in Clinton County, close to 6:10. And there are little storms moving toward the Quad Cities as well. Just not the best time to be traveling across much of eastern Iowa now, and certainly not most of all in southern Johnson County, where this tornado warning continues, technically for another 20 minutes. However, it would not be a surprise to see it extended farther northeast as the storm has maintained its strength, and it's still out on its own too. And so hills, you are very much under the gun here in terms of seeing that area of rotation approach your area. You can see when we factor in some of the motion of the storm, the rotation is not as severe looking as it was not long ago, which is good. That is a good sign for this storm perhaps losing some of its punch. The tornado that we saw earlier, perhaps, well, there was another report from the National Weather Service north of Riverside. Well, we'll have to keep an eye on that. They are going to, it sounds like, issue a new tornado warning here at some point, which is not too surprising given the stakes and given the storm that we see. So that's likely going to continue here beyond where the current warning is. Areas like far southeast Iowa City, West Branch, West Liberty, all should be considering what your safety plan is here and be ready to enact it as we look ahead as this storm continues tracking off to the northeast. Hills, you should be in shelter now.
And it's not at all surprising that these storms are able to maintain their strength as well as they have. They're in an environment that is fairly conducive to continuing to roll on and, again, maintain their strength and continue to support this threat for severe weather as it has moved through. Quick look if we can swap Max 1 out for Max 3 in the, there we go. So again, just a very brief look at, again, the overall setup that we're looking at. You've got your clouds that are associated with our line of storms that currently moving through Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, down towards Washington. But this darker shading off to the right, that is going to be your clearing. And that area of clearing has allowed temperatures to really climb out ahead of these storms, ahead of where the storms have moved through. Still hanging on to 71 in Iowa City, 72 in Washington, 73 in Mount Pleasant. Warm, moist air is what feeds these storms and keeps them going. Dew points are in the 60s, so it is warm. It's just a little bit muggy out there. And that is, again, not just why we have seen these storms maintain their strength as well as they have, but why there's a tornado watch that remains in effect until 8 p.m. tonight for a good portion of eastern Iowa. And of course, that does include where all of these storms are currently tracking through. So again, you can see pretty much exactly where that tornado watch has been issued. That's where your tornado warned storm is located, and also where that line of severe storms is falling in behind it. So again, the primary thing that we are looking at in terms of threats here is going to be that storm that does have a history of producing tornadoes. That is why it does have that observed tag on it. Again, at this point, moving just to the south of Iowa City. And it does look like, as we have a look at the velocity on that storm, you can kind of zoom in and see just to the southeast of Hills looks like is where that rotation is going to be at its tightest, and that's going to be where, again, you are wanting to make sure that you are taking cover if you are in the path of this storm. If you're not under a tornado warning, but if you are just off to the northeast of this storm, well, there we go. You're now under a tornado warning. We now have that new tornado warning that has been issued. So let me jump back over to our radar image here. So again, new tornado warning has just been issued. That is going to be for Cedar, Johnson, and Muscatine counties, portions of them, for this storm that, again, has a history of producing tornadoes, has at times had a tornado observed with it. So that is going to be tracking off to the northeast as this storm continues to move. We, of course, will be continuing to keep you, or stay on the air with you and keep you up to date with this storm as it continues to move off to the northeast. It does look like with this storm, the motion is still to the northeast at about 45 miles an hour. So we'll go ahead and put a fresh storm track on this and give you an indicator on where it will be going here over the next 45 minutes to an hour. Again, storm motion about 45 miles per hour. It is moving off to the northeast, and we're going to take this track from the area of the storm that would be, again, most likely to produce that tornado. So as it tracks off to the northeast, that is going to take this storm system out towards Downey by 440, West Branch by the time we get to 443, Cedar Valley by 451, Rochester by 454, and by 5 p.m. this storm is approaching Tipton. From that point, New Liberty by 514, 516 this storm is approaching Loudon. And again, this is a storm that does have has a history of producing tornadoes and is still under, or still has a tornado warning associated with it, as it has been able to maintain its strength and maintain its rotation in what has been a pretty favorable environment for severe weather as we have gone through the afternoon on into the evening.
You can see our Washington City cam looking ominous. Again, that second line of storms moving in from the west, a severe thunderstorm warning for that. I understand we've got some video of sort of the example of the heavy rain that we're seeing in many areas. Yeah, you can see that's Highway 218, Highway 1, that's in Iowa City, down the south side of the city. Folks navigating it, but certainly not the best time to be out there and about inside that storm. Their rain is falling because of the isolated storm that we were talking about with the tornado warning, as that keeps moving off to the northeast. And so that is what we're watching carefully. Heavy rain that could affect travel. We're about to get to the evening rush hour. We certainly would like people to use extra caution. Let's take a look at Max 1 real quick. We'll take a look at a couple of different city cams just to see what we can see. Again, Cedar Rapids, you're within a severe thunderstorm warning right now, seeing that intensity of rain falling. No hail, at least, obvious at that point, but there is a report of some golf ball sized hail falling on the south side of Iowa City, which we'll take a look at here in just a second. Coralville showing the heavy rain again, but you are sort of on the very far northwestern side of this storm as it tracks off to the northeast. So let's pinpoint here and take a closer look at this, which the hail potential really has increased, not only with the rotation, but the hail size that we could get out of the storm. It's very close to the southeast side of Iowa City with at least $quarter to $half sized hail according to our radar. But if we put the traditional radar view back on, it's this portion where the purple is, where we're likely to be seeing hail falling across portions of southeast Iowa City. It's going to be out toward the soccer park and the really far southeast side. A lot of the more populated areas may skirt just around this, but there are certainly folks that live in along those rural portions of the county. But of course, the bigger story remains the rotation that we're seeing and the rotation that persists across southeastern Johnson County as it moves off to the northeast. You can see Downey, the folks that live in far southwestern Cedar County, that's the next major populated area of sorts that are moving, where this area of rotation is moving in. And so we will go ahead and pull back a little bit, put on a new storm track. It's moving to the northeast, and so that puts it pretty close to West Branch and Rochester too, but Downey, it's within 5 minutes or so, 5 to 10 minutes. So you really do want to get beneath the ground if you can. If you don't have that option, it would be really great if you could get to the lowest floor of your home and seek shelter Rochester closer to 453, Lime City at 458, Tipton, it's going to be pretty close to you at about 5 o'clock. Now, it may again just pass to your south, but it's going to be a close call no matter where we look at it. And so we really do want you to seek shelter out that way too as this storm continues moving off to the northeast.
And again, as that storm continues to move off to the northeast, it's the, of course, tornado warned storm that we are keeping a very close eye on, but the line of storms that is behind it as well, that again does have that potential to produce damaging winds and some hail associated with it. Down near Washington, you can see that line of storms is approaching that area, and if we could get the two boxes with Max 3 and Max 2, you'll have a good view of our Washington City cam showing where that line is in relation to the city, again, moving in. Excuse me, that is our Coralville City cam, no worries. But Coralville is still one of those spots that is seeing impacts from the tornado warned storm as it passes to the south and east of Coralville currently, but Coralville, right on the heels of that tornado warned storm, you also have this larger line of storms that is moving through. So overall, a very stormy afternoon across especially areas along and south of that Highway 30 corridor. Just to the north of Interstate 80, we do have a severe thunderstorm warning along this line that extends into Cedar Rapids. It includes North Liberty and Solon. Johnson and Lynn counties included in this severe thunderstorm warning as well. Hail up to 1 inch in diameter, 60-mile-an-hour winds. They do have a tornado possible tag on this severe thunderstorm warning. Here's what that means. It means there's a little bit of rotation within this line of storms. As a result, this line of storms does have the rotation and therefore the potential to at some point possibly produce a tornado. Something to keep a close eye on. Of course, the National Weather Service also keeping a very close eye on this storm, and should an area of rotation intensify within this storm, they would issue a tornado warning, and of course we would let you know about that as well. But again, primary threats with this line of storms as it moves through areas currently passing over I-380, but then moving towards Cedar Rapids, Lisbon, and Solon, going to be damaging winds and some hail associated with that.
Let's swap out Max 1 in the main box and talk about what you were talking about, AJ. There is a little bit of rotation. Again, that's why they have that tornado possible tag. If you look just north of Ely, that portion of the storm you were talking about crossing Interstate 380, it'll approach areas near Bertram probably within the next few minutes. Again, not imminent to show the evident rotation like we've seen down toward Johnson County, but it is something that we're going to keep a close eye on from here. It is very much within the rainy area of the storm, so we're not going to have a good look at it from any city cam, nor will your eyes have a good look at it if it decides to begin to produce tighter rotation that could lead to a tornado. So we're going to watch that very carefully. I didn't mean to cut you off there, AJ, but just wanted to sort of emphasize the same point you were making.
Absolutely, no worries at all. But yeah, absolutely something to, of course, keep a close eye on with that line of storms as it's moving through. And with the tornado warned storm that is currently down just currently to the east and southeast of Iowa City, if we can switch over, there we go. We have our, Corey just had it pulled up, but I'll pull it up as well, our kind of area of concern that we are kind of keeping an eye on as this storm continues to move through. You'll notice that the storm does again have a little bit of an appendage trying to form right there, and that again, if it were to continue to wrap around and kind of form into a hook shape, would certainly be cause for concern for that storm to suggest that it's trying to strengthen up and produce a tornado. But this storm continues to have rotation with it. You can see just to the off to the east of Downey, that is where again, we're seeing those reds and greens close together. That's going to be your sign that there is some rotation with that storm. Looks like from what I'm seeing, it has been more than 10 minutes since the last report of this storm having a tornado on the ground. So our last spotter or chaser report of a tornado on the ground more than 10 minutes ago now, but still this storm is rotating. And as we have seen, it does not take long for these situations to change and for this storm to potentially end up producing a tornado.
Let's take a look at our DOT camera again near Wapsie Avenue, which is along Interstate 80. Not a great time to be out on the roads, that's for sure. You can see at least one vehicle pulled over to stay out of the blinding rain, which is the smart move if you're in these situations. Get off the road as far as you can. Don't stop under the overpass. Not the right move because it's not necessarily the safest place to be in the first place, and it also limits the flow of traffic to cause potential danger there as well. And so just stay safe. But this is pretty close to the area where that rotation is taking place. It certainly still looks pretty ominous on radar as of latest look too, in terms of this storm's ability to produce a potential tornado. AJ was looking at it. We've got it on our radar view as well as from different storm spotters that have been following along. The National Weather Service, of course, passing along all their information too. You can see all those folks that pulled over now be safe getting back into the flow of traffic. Let's take a look at Max 1 real quick. We've got that individual storm. And the good news is that it does appear that the line behind it is starting to catch up just a little bit. If we could get that to fully catch up and overtake the storm, now there is occasionally some weirdness that goes on with storms, that's a technical term, but it does, as those storms combine, sometimes it can cause things to temporarily increase in danger a little bit, but often it leads to a reduction in the long term. And so that would be overall a good thing. Still enough separation between that individual cell east of where the words that say Iowa City are and the line of storms that could be producing strong gusty winds, heavy blinding rain just to the northwest of it. But it's this portion that's about to finally cross into portions of Cedar County, where we see that potential for rotation as it moves off to the northeast. And that is certainly where the National Weather Service is keeping a close eye on it. It would be right around here if I grab the right tool. That hook echo persists. West Branch, you're probably seeing some hail at this point as that storm moves through your area and it continues tracking off to the northeast. But again, at this point, it's that potential for tornadic rotation that we're most concerned with and that we are keeping a very, very close eye on, which I'll show you here for just a second. And then I'll have AJ take a look as well.
Oh, yeah, a bunch of traffic stopped there on I-80.
I wonder if someone, because this is from the perspective of Lower West Branch Road, so that would be near the interchange there, that's east of Iowa City. That makes me consider that folks have probably stopped under the overpass, and that's why traffic stopped. Now, there's a possibility that a vehicle turned or there's been an accident. Obviously, in the blinding rain, that's possible too, but that is just a little extra danger as these storms roll through if you are out on the road. Of course, if you are, we encourage you to pull off the road and find yourself a safe place to ride out the storm. They're moving quickly. It's a one and done situation today. Once this line moves through in this individual cell, things will improve. AJ, you're taking a look at the storm from the velocity view.
Yes, taking a look at the velocity of this storm, and it is showing some signs of trying to kind of tighten up its rotation a little bit. Again, seeing that evidence there where you've got your reds and your greens that are pretty close to each other, just off to the east of West Liberty, to the west of West Liberty, right along, let's see, that would be Highway 6 if I'm seeing that correctly. But again, just to the southwest of Downey. So if you live in Downey, now's the time to get to your safe space. You really need to be in your safe space right now. Again, that is going to be your basement or the lowest level of your home. If you don't have a basement, that'd be your first floor, making sure you're getting into a bathroom, closet, somewhere with no outside facing windows. Ideally, you want as many walls between you and the outside as possible. But again, your areas where you have your reds and your greens coming close together, that's going to be that spot right in there where you are going to be watching for that storm to potentially produce a tornado. And this area is tracking off to the northeast and has been moving between about 40 and 50 miles an hour all afternoon. We'll go ahead and get a fresh storm track again on this specific portion of the storm. We'll go ahead and switch back over to our traditional radar view where you can see that storm again has that little appendage in addition to your velocity showing those reds and those greens really close together, indicating that there's some rotation trying to tighten up within that storm. Again, that kind of downward-facing appendage right there that we've seen now maintaining for the last couple of scans would suggest that this storm is really trying to kind of get its act together and try to intensify and potentially produce a tornado. Of course, has a history of producing tornadoes, but again, something that we are keeping a close eye on. Looks like... Go ahead.
No. While you're reading that report, yeah, we can go ahead and take a look at the DOT camera as well, close to Downey on Interstate 80. Let's see what we got.
And while we take a look at that, we do have a a new report in from the Muscatine County. Let's see, that is from a different storm system. Excuse me.
No, that's from the one we're talking about, Johnson Muscatine
Oh,
County line.
Yep, you're right.
So that's right near where you were talking about, that appendage that you're describing, which is passing right near the famous corner of Muscatine, Cedar, and Johnson County, just north of Highway 6. So that would be in the same region of Downey. That would be in the same region moving northeast and passing just to the east of West Branch. Now, West Branch, you're not out of the woods in terms of getting some of that really strong, intense rain, potentially some hail as well, but the tornadic portion of the storm now just crossing into Cedar County based on our view, and that is, yeah, again, like you illustrated, that appendage is at least a storm spotter there. Emergency manager, I believe?
Yes.
EMA from Muscatine County, thanks to them for their efforts to keep an eye on this storm, and that's what they've seen. Potential funnel on that was kicking up at least a little debris.
Yep, so that, again, storm has a history of producing a tornado, and again, that fresh report coming in from the Johnson-Muscatine County line of this storm producing a funnel on the ground with debris, so that would be your tornado. And again, that is going to be on this storm that we've been tracking all afternoon that currently has a tornado warning with it. Currently, the tornadic part of the storm is just to the south of West Branch. We'll go ahead and get a fresh look at this storm on velocity, and wow, there you have it. There's the rotation there has really tightened up with this storm system, just off to the east of West Branch and just to the north of Centerdale. So those spots, make sure that you are in your safe space. It is going to be right in that area right there where you've got your reds and your greens really coming close together, where you have that cause of concern for a storm that would produce the tornado. We'll take a quick look at debris. Not seeing anything super obvious on debris, or at least evidence that this storm is lifting debris into the air. But again, a pretty intense tightening of the rotation there just to the north of Centerdale, and that is an accompaniment with this storm that has, for the last couple of radar scans now, had this appendage that has been hanging down to the south side of it, right along and just to the south of West Branch. That, again, right in there, going to be your area that you're keeping an eye on. If it were to produce a tornado, that would be your spot that you're watching for it to produce a tornado. So I know we mentioned it a few minutes ago. We are now going to put a storm track on this and show you where it is moving as we go over the next hour or so. We'll kind of get out ahead of this storm here, and again, we'll pull this storm track based on where that tornadic part of the storm would be, moves off to the northeast as it has continued to do so. Over the next 45 minutes, that's going to take this storm system towards Rochester by 4:56, Tipton by 5:02, Bennett by 5:10, Loudoun by 5:18, Wheatland by the time we get to 5:22, Sherman Park by 5:24, Lost Nation by the time we get to 5:30. So again, even if you are not currently under a tornado warning, but maybe you are in one of those spots that we just listed, this is a storm that has had a very easy time maintaining its strength over the last couple of hours, and is a storm that will likely continue to maintain its strength for quite some time. It does have a history of sporadically producing tornadoes. So again, a storm that you're going to want to take seriously. Go ahead and take advantage of the time you have now if you're not under a tornado warning, but again, maybe in the path of this storm. Play it safe. Go ahead and make your preparations now, and make sure that you are getting down to your safe space as this storm system approaches.
Let's take a wide view on Max 1 of what's going on around eastern Iowa. Again, it's mostly southeastern Iowa, as we were expecting today. A first alert day, one of 2 in a row, which will, of course, get to everything you can expect tomorrow coming up in just a little bit. But for this hour, we have 3 warnings of concern here in eastern Iowa. Let's go through them. If you live north of Cedar Rapids, you do not have any severe thunderstorm warnings at this point, but it doesn't mean that you're not experiencing heavier thunderstorms. Heavy rain moving toward Manchester and moving into portions of Clayton, Delaware, and Dubuque County soon. Grant County in southwest Wisconsin, you'll be involved as well. There is one area I want to highlight just for the sake of information near Springville, where we've seen a little bit of rotation on radar. It's pretty broad, but it will at least indicate the potential for gusty winds, and as well as a little bit of hail potentially embedded within this line as it moves to the northeast. So that warning continues until right about 5 o'clock. quarter-sized hail, 60-mile-per-hour winds. Now, as AJ has been describing, the tornado warning still continues until 5:15 as well. They got rid of the one that was a little bit behind, that expired at 4:45, and the threat had passed. But this one goes until 5:15 officially for what is still considered an observed tornado, although I don't believe they've updated it for a little bit. And so we did have that report, though, of a bit of a funnel cloud. Farther to the south, we've got portions of Washington County as well as Loiza County in a severe thunderstorm warning until 5:15 for 60-mile-per-hour winds. Washington, you just saw the worst of it. Now you'll see some rain and thunder and lightning, but the heavier portion of the storm tracks off to the east. You can see that moving just across Highway 218, heading to folks around Columbus Junction. Conesville, not included in a warning, but you're very close to it. Lone Tree, Hills, Riverside, Nichols, all the places we talked about with that first storm. You were about to see more severe weather as well, at least in the potential to be producing some damaging winds. Does look like they updated that warning. Still observed. Johnson County, you're out of it. Cedar County, Northern Muscatine County, still involved with that tornado warning at this point, as the storm looks a lot like it did just 5 minutes ago when you were talking about it.
It does. You still have that appendage you can see that's still kind of trying to stretch down with that storm as it continues to track off to the northeast. And there we go. You can see stretching down towards the I-80 corridor. That is going to be where that latest radar scan is showing that kind of chunk of the storm that, again, trying to stretch down to the south. And if it were to continue to do that and maintain that, that'd be where you're watching for that tornado to continue, that tornado threat to continue to be. If we can briefly switch over to Max 3, we'll take, again, another quick look at that storm, and we'll have a look at the velocity that's with it too. So again, this little appendage right here, that's going to be the area of the storm that you're most concerned with as far as tornado risk. Of course, areas to the north where you have all these deeper, darker colors, that's going to be your hail risk, where you're seeing a lot of that 1-inch hail, very heavy rainfall in there as well. But for the tornado side of this storm, that again is going to be where this appendage is located. And as we have a look at the rotation within this storm, that's also going to be where you see those reds and greens that are fairly close together, and we've seen this storm maintain its rotation. Of course, it has gone through cycles of weakening and strengthening, and as that's happened, we have seen multiple reports of this tornado, or this storm rather, producing funnel clouds, and on at least a couple of occasions producing tornadoes that have made it down to the ground. At this point, a quick look at debris side of things. Again, not really seeing a whole lot in terms of the amount of, or in terms of debris being lofted into the air with this storm. But again, that tornado warning is still still has an observed tag on it, because this storm does have a history of producing tornadoes. And again, still a storm that if you are in the path of it, you are really going to want to make sure you're getting down to your safe spot.
Absolutely. As it moves through those rural portions of Cedar County, however, it's going to come very close to the area near Rochester. Tipton, it's a close shave as well. Large hail is likely in Tipton as that approaches from the southwest, so that's something we'll have to keep a close eye on. We're seeing heavy rain on our Springville city cam as it approaches. Tipton, well, you can see it now. That's the leading edge of this heavier area of precipitation that's going to be moving in our city cam view there. And so that's something that we'll be watching as that storm gets closer and closer. We're looking off to the south from Tipton, and so that gives us a good view as the storm rolls in. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the Cedar County area as this storm approaches. There was a report from the National Weather Service of a tornado 3 miles east of West Branch near Interstate 80 from the Cedar County Sheriff's Office. So the Sheriff's Department there passed that along to the National Weather Service, and so the storm may be still producing what looks like, at least based on the information we have, relatively weaker tornadoes, but tornadoes nonetheless, and that's why we want you to seek shelter as the storm approaches and as it moves off. Now, the good news is that this situation is very much a one and done. We're going to show you what we mean by that in just a moment, but we'll put a storm track here. It does look like if it was near Interstate 80, it would be this. So passing between Tipton and Rochester near Bennett, outside of this tornado warning, but closer to 511. And so it is pretty rural areas of portions of Cedar County, but again, approaching areas that are a bit more populated, so you want to be careful. But like we said, AJ, one and done with this round of storms, which is good news. Sometimes, you know, you can get redevelopment as storms move through, but this time around it does look like once we can clear these warnings from southeast Iowa, we'll at least see a break.
Absolutely, and we're kind of seeing evidence of that good news starting to show up in how we're seeing our tornado watch evolving as well. But before we look at that, we'll switch over to Max 3 on our, there we go, just perfect. So you can see the line of storms again, big picture. We do have our tornado warn storm that we've been tracking all afternoon. That line of storms that is now pushing through Cedar Rapids and Iowa City down towards Washington. But behind that line, we're not really seeing much in the way of new development. And once that line of storms moves through, it does appear that the severe threat is done for the day. We can see that reflected in our tornado watch. If you live down near Oskaloosa, down in that area along Interstate 80, you'll notice that the tornado watch has been trimmed away a little bit. Of course, earlier in the day, it did include areas around Oskaloosa and around Tama and areas to the south. As that line of storms has moved through, we've seen that tornado watch get trimmed away at, and would expect to see that tornado watch continue to get removed from west to east as we go through the rest of your afternoon and evening, and as that line of storms moves through. But if you are still ahead of this line of storms, in other words, if you have not been hit by this line of storms yet, your severe threat is not over. So make sure that you are continuing to stay weather aware. Cedar Rapids, it does look like that the worst of those storms are moving out of your area right now. Iowa City, looks like you are working your way towards the back end of those storms, especially if you are on the western side of town. Same with the western side of Riverside. Washington starting to get onto the backside of those strongest storms as well. But Tipton, currently, you all are under the path of this tornado warn storm as it does continue to track off to the northeast and move towards your area. But again, that tornado warn storm, the line that's associated with it, both continuing to move off towards the east, and as it does so, we will of course be continuing to keep tabs on this line of storms, and we'll continue to stay on the air with you as long as the tornado warning is there in effect, and then we'll continue to follow these severe thunderstorms on streaming in addition once the tornado warning has expired or moved out of the area. But again, overall right now we'll have another quick look at this tornado warn storm that is moving through. Kind of taking a closer look at it again, Tipton. We've got that look you can see in our Tipton City Cam in the bottom corner of your screen right there. Really good view of that storm as it is moving into the area, and it is again right there just about to hit the Tipton area, but as the storm moves through again, continues to maintain its rotation. Looks like south of Tipton and just to the west of Rochester is currently where the kind of the center of that rotation is and where the primary cause for concern is. But as the storm system continues to move off to the northeast, it's going to be a very close call whether it moves through Tipton or passes just to the south of it. So again, if you are in the path of this storm, if you are in the tornado warned portion of this storm especially, make sure that you are taking cover and getting to your safe spot.
Is there any chance, excuse me, if there's any chance we could take off the TV9 logo from the corner there and get a better shot of Tipton, or we could take Max 2 full screen for a little bit too, just to get a look at the CityCam view as the storm rolls in. Remember, Tipton, you are on the edge of this, so we do want you to be in your safe shelter as this moves off to the northeast, but the perhaps somewhat more ominous look at this storm is just to your south. Thank you, folks in the control room. Appreciate it. Tipton, again, you can see the leading edge. Could see some gustier winds, larger hail potentially moving through the Tipton area. Still seeing that storm warned for at least quarter-sized hail. I wouldn't be surprised if there were a few larger stones than that. It's actually been a pretty prolific hail producer. We showed you earlier this afternoon that hail that fell down near Ottumwa, and we've gotten some reports near Iowa City as well. We hope to effort some pictures, or if you have pictures, feel free to send them to us, kcrg.com, unews. And then we've got, well, the potential for some wind damage too. I wouldn't be surprised if winds start to gust here in the Tipton area as the storm continues passing off to the northeast. However, AJ, I would say, you know, looking at stuff on the screen, looking at stuff off the air, storm's still rotating, but it's hard to say how evident it is or just how organized it is. I would certainly still very much treat this as a serious situation, though.
Absolutely. It's at this point looking to see if there are any new reports of, let's see, checking to see if there's any new reports of a tornado on the ground and not seeing anything. Looks like the last report was...
It was that one down near Interstate 80, 3 miles east of Interstate 80.
Yes,
Yep.
yep.
So it's been a few minutes, but we are in pretty rural areas. Road network out there, we're talking gravel roads largely. There is a highway that runs between Interstate 80 and up to Tipton, Highway 38. But there is also a new large severe thunderstorm warning for the rest of the storms, not the individual storm that we've been talking about with the tornado warning, but the rest of the storms moving off to the northeast. You can see that for Cedar and Muscatine. Oh no, that's the tornado warning, excuse me.
Yeah,
Includes Jones, Cedar, Jackson, Clinton, Scott, and Muscatine counties all until, let's get the time on that.
That is going to be until 6 p.m. Storms capable of producing 60-mile-an-hour winds and 1-inch hail with those.
Yep. So same threats that we've been seeing with that line of storms behind the main focus of that tornado warning, and it's going to be pretty quick. You're not going to have a lot of time between the two, and you can see on our city cam in Tipton, that storm is producing strong winds and a lot of rain as it moves through the Tipton area, and so folks there are getting the brunt of it right now, certainly harming visibility and hopefully not harming electricity as this moves off to the east.
Hopefully so. And we'll go ahead and take a kind of a broad picture here and kind of get a general look at the speed of these storms as they will be moving through. It looks like most of these storms today have been moving about 45 to 50 miles an hour. So we're going to put a storm track on this entire line of storms, stretching up towards the Highway 20 corridor, going all the way down south of Washington where those severe thunderstorms are located. So as this line of storms continues to track off to the east and northeast, getting towards the Mississippi River, we're going to see these storms moving into Monticello by the time we get to 5:01, Cascade by 5:13, Muscatine by 5:22, Maquoketa by 5:30, Dubuque by 5:40, and then they'll be moving off towards Davenport and then off Davenport by 5:54. So it looks like by the time we get into the 6:30 time frame, these storms will be moving into our far eastern counties, and then by that point they'll be moving out. And as we've talked about, once this line of storms moves through, looks like for today anyways, we will be done with our severe weather threat.
Yeah, and so we are approaching the 5 o'clock hour. Typically we would be wrapping up weather now and starting our 5 o'clock newscast. Thanks for sticking with us here on KCRG TV9 as we track these storms through eastern Iowa. It's been a little bit of a rough go for folks in the south at this point as those warnings continue for the areas outlined on your screen. Many areas southeast where we had that severe weather outlook earlier today, what we've been talking about as it's a first alert day across eastern Iowa, seeing unfortunately those storms come to pass. We always hope that when we've got that threat that things don't actually pan out. We don't want those storms to affect people, affect their lives, but unfortunately today there's been some reports of damage, and as so far the reports have been limited, but we do have reporters on the way to check out what we know so far, see the extent of it as those storms move through.
And it looks like we do have a new report from just a couple minutes ago. Train spotter reporting a rotating wall cloud near Rochester and Cedar County. So that is going to be with this tornado warn storm that we have been tracking as it continues to move off currently through Cedar County, just now moving through Tipton. So again, this storm that we are continuing to watch, as of last report, did have a rotating wall cloud with it. Doesn't look like there was a report of a tornado with it at that point. But again, with a rotating wall cloud, that is a storm that again has the potential to produce a tornado, and this storm again does have a history of producing tornadoes at different points during the afternoon. That is why there is that observed tag on this tornado warning. You can see it up there in the top right corner of your screen where you've also got your hail size that at times with this storm was up to 2 inches in diameter. Now your hail size is down to 1 inch in diameter. Still something to take seriously. Make sure that you are getting out of the way of this storm, getting down to your safe space as it's moving in. But we'll go ahead and put a storm track on this tornadic part of the storm, or the rotating part of the storm, and we'll have a quick look at where it is headed as we go through the next hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So again, right now it is going to be just off to the east of Tipton, where you have those reds and greens really close together. That's going to be where you're watching for that area of rotation that would lead to the potential for, again, if this storm were to produce a tornado, that would be where your concern would be for it to drop and be produced. So we'll go ahead and take our storm track and extend it out from that portion of the storm that is rotating, and we'll stretch it out here over the next 40 to 45 minutes as it tracks off to the northeast at around 45 miles an hour. By 5:16, that rotating part of the storm will be approaching Loudoun, getting towards Wheatland by the time we get to 5:20, Toronto by 5:22, Calamus by 5:25, Welton by 5:37, and then moving off towards Riggs by the time we get to 5:46.
Yes, so that storm keeping its pace. Note that if we pick up Max 2 again, we had the storms that were moving through, producing that intense rainfall and wind. They moved through pretty quickly on the north side of that storm's rotating area. Now, Tipton, this looks like the picture looked just about 10 to 15 minutes ago as another wall of rain is coming in, and some very strong winds are going to come in as well. Right now, it does look like the strongest winds with a secondary line that's behind that area of rotation are taking place just to the south of Tipton and moving across Highway 38 as well, but then they'll be moving into eastern Cedar County too. So I'll show you here. We have these two areas of storms. AJ just described everything going on with this individual storm. It's been tracking to the northeast all the way since Ottumwa, producing rotation, reports of hail, some reports of damage as tornado warnings have continued with it. But it's this bowing arc that's starting to move into portions of Cedar County that is producing potentially very gusty winds. I'm going to put the velocity scope on here, and it's those bright blues near Rochester that could be up to 60-mile-per-hour winds potentially. Radar is detecting these winds pretty low in the atmosphere because it's closer to that radar site that's located near the Davenport Airport, just north of Interstate 80. You can see it as you drive through the Quad Cities. And so we're getting a pretty good look at this storm in terms of where the wind is and how strong the wind is. That radar being not as high off the ground as it is in other portions of eastern Iowa. So that's a useful tool, but it also means that, well, we could see the potential for some wind damage and a pretty good signature for it as the storm continues off to the northeast, moving at a pace of about still 45 miles per hour or so. Yeah, it's actually, the line's picked up a little bit more speed. So 40 to 50 miles per hour potentially, and embedded within that is still that one storm. It's kept its space. It's not much.
It has been racing ahead of that line.
Yep, it's been being chased this whole time, and I'll actually show you here how much space there is between the line and the potential portion of the tornado. We're talking just a matter of 3 to maybe 7 miles in terms of that area of the storm that could be producing rotation. And it's really kept that space pretty consistently for the past hour or so, and that's why the potential is still there. We're moving near Bennett. We're moving in rural portions of eastern Cedar County, just near Highway 130 as it passes between Tipton and Bennett, and so that tracks off to the northeast. Plenty to seek shelter for there. Still seeing that rotation. It does look like we've got it just along that highway that we just mentioned, 130. It would be this area here. Again, it's not as evident and strong as it has been at times this afternoon, but it still is very much there, and it extends higher up into the cloud. A little farther down the appendage, we're not seeing quite the same, checking out a couple things off the air. Yeah, it's moved up a little bit perhaps in terms of its relative position in that storm. And so instead of at the very end of it, we're seeing it more toward perhaps the middle portion. Now, we're not seeing it wrapped up in that same shape that we saw earlier, but certainly still are seeing enough rotation that the National Weather Service went ahead, extended that tornado warning. You see it now extends into portions of Cedar County, or rather, yeah, more of Cedar County, taking it into Clinton and Jackson County too. This goes until 5:30. Still expecting half-dollar sized hail as well as a potential as this storm continues to maintain its strength, maintain its potential for tornadic activity. Really want you to seek shelter, get to the lowest floor of your home, basement, interior room. Both are the way to go here at this point as this storm tracks quickly off to the northeast. Now, we have seen, again, areas that have really started to calm down behind these storms. Things are moving out. We are expecting things to really calm down once these storms move through. AJ, I believe they've continued, you've been taking a look, they're continuing to trim away some of the counties from that tornado watch, I believe.
They are. So we've had the tornado watch that was issued earlier this afternoon, shortly before 2 p.m., and it's in effect until 8 p.m. tonight. But that tornado watch used to extend back towards Oskaloosa in areas around and just south of Tama. You can see those counties at this point have been removed from that tornado watch because as this line of storms has moved through, we've seen the severe threat in those areas diminish behind that line to the point where there's again no longer a concern in the Oskaloosa and Tama areas for those strong to severe storms later this afternoon and evening. As this line continues to track off to the east, we are expecting to see a continuation of those of that trimming away of the tornado watch. So that would again be next up in line to see that trimmed away would be Benton, Iowa, Keokuk counties as we go through the next half hour to an hour. And here's the reason why that is. We're seeing this line of storms again moving through the area, and behind the line there's not really much in the way of redevelopment that we are expecting. Right now, Cedar Rapids is seeing that line clearing out of their area. Iowa City now is seeing, especially the downtown areas, seeing the line moving past them. Same with Riverside, Washington as well. That line is now pushed for the most part off to the east of their area, and we'll continue to see that line moving off to the east as it does so, taking that severe threat with it. Within this line, we'll go ahead and kind of start back talking again about this storm that is the tornado that does have the tornado warning on it. It does have an observed tornado tag with it because at times we've seen this storm produce tornadoes and produce funnel clouds as we've gone through the afternoon. At this point, it does look like the storm system, or the tornadic cell, the storm that has been just out ahead of this line, is starting to kind of lose its lead on that main line of storms. So what I mean by that is we have your storm here, and this is a storm we've been concerned about with producing tornadoes this afternoon. But behind it, we have this other line of storms that has been trying to catch up with that tornado, or the tornadic storm, through the afternoon and evening. And as Corey had mentioned a little while ago, if this line of storms is able to catch up with and overtake this rotating storm, sometimes what we can see is that it kind of takes away that threat for, or kind of reduces the ability of that tornadic storm to continue rotating and continue producing tornadoes. So again, we're continuing to monitor that. Looks like it's the lead storm that has that tornado warning on it. Does look like it's starting to kind of lose that distance just a little bit ahead of that main line, but still has just enough space ahead of it that it is continuing to again have that risk for some strong to severe storm itself, but again that rotation that is with it. Quick look, again, looks like it's not seeing anything, not seeing a specific it doesn't look like the rotation is as tight as we have seen it at different points during the afternoon. But again, you can still see kind of a broader area of rotation where you've kind of got your reds and your greens that are kind of closer together there just off to the north of Bennett. So that again is going to be that area that we're keeping a close eye on as that storm continues to track off to the north. And that's again where that appendage is, kind of stretching south of that storm, where you would be concerned for that storm to produce a tornado if it were to see that rotation strengthen and tighten up.
Indeed, and just a report of a possible tornado touchdown. It was 7 minutes ago, according to the Cedar County Sheriff. That is an area just south of Tipton. That was where the report came in, just getting this from the National Weather Service. It was hard to see that the bottom of the tornado, the base of the tornado, was actually touching the ground. So at the very least, they saw a funnel cloud, and that was about 7 minutes ago. So it just goes to show that we are continuing to see the potential for very strong storms, severe weather, and tornadic possibilities as the storm carries off to the northeast. And so that's why these various tornado warnings continue. The one that now includes the storm that has the potential to produce a tornado goes until 5:30 this evening. Cedar, Clinton, Scott counties, as AJ's been describing. But we're starting to see that distance shrink a little bit, and we will see that continue tracking off to the northeast. So Wheatland, Toronto, that takes you into other of those communities that kind of dot the Highway 30 area. We're talking down toward Loudon, Calamus, Grand Mound. Those are all tracking off to the northeast. And so those storms, those areas certainly will be the ones that want to be in their safe shelter at this point. No other report other than that report several minutes ago south of Tipton. So no clear indication that this storm is producing tornadic activity at this immediate hour. But it does look like if you don't get that, you're going to get heavy rain, potential for some hail, and the potential for some damaging wind too. So you're not out of the woods for severe weather as that moves through. But again, I'd like to emphasize, as AJ did, once it moves through, we're going to catch a break.
Absolutely.
That's the good news too.
Yep, so we'll be done for the night tonight, which good news for folks who are wanting to get to bed at a decent hour. You're not going to be going to bed concerned about another round of storms moving through later tonight. That is not what we are looking at with this setup. What we are going to be looking for instead is, again, for that line of storms to move through and take the severe threat with it. Now, am I remembering correctly or hearing correctly that we got some pictures of damage down in Ottumwa?
I believe we've got hail pictures again from Ottumwa. New stuff piling up outside of homes. You can see that does happen from time to time, the bottom of those eaves or those storm drains, and just kind of piling up. There's also a photograph of damage that the hail did too.
Yeah, it looks like holes in the siding there.
Yeah, so we're still gathering information about what took place down toward Wapello County, but some reports may have suggested hail at least golf ball sized. You throw that at a house at a high rate of speed, that's going to shatter or at least cause those holes to develop in the siding. Looks like the windows are in pretty good shape, so that's good for the folks that own that home. But the siding, yep, happens time and time again. Every year as storms roll through, that's going to be a bit of a pain to have to deal with. We do have another photograph. If control me if you could effort to get that one of potentially a lowering in the storm. It was, again, a while ago. We're now sort of reviewing things that have happened in the past as the storms move through. Go ahead and take a look at that. Yeah, you can see in the center of your screen, if you could actually try to zoom in on that picture a little bit. I know there should be, yeah, there we go. That might be at least a funnel cloud. Hard to tell for sure as me and AJ both lean over to try to get a different look at this picture, whether it's exactly touching the ground. If it's not, it's real close.
That is certainly a funnel cloud at the very least.
Yep, and we're talking, so this is looking north from near Lone Tree. There's that auto dealership that's just outside of town, north of Lone Tree. And so you go up that old state highway, and so you're looking almost due north. And so that would have been from when this storm came through earlier. This is not a live picture, but this is a photograph from a viewer that we really appreciate. And yeah, that would have been a time when that probably was a tornado. I mean, it's hard to say with 100% certainty.
It is.
But I'd say it seems pretty likely.
And with this storm having a history of producing tornadoes would not be at all surprising if that was reaching down towards the ground at that point. But again, thank you to all of you folks who have sent in photos of damage, of the storms themselves. Please continue to send in those photos as you get them. Make sure that it is safe to do so. Don't risk your life or safety to go out and take those photos, but after the storm has passed, or if you are able to safely do so, any photos we can get are always much appreciated in terms of helping to better inform everyone about what's going on with the storm and what it has been producing, both in terms of hail damage, wind damage, as well as tornado damage.
Here's where we are in terms of the storms moving through. You can see that it has been primarily the southeastern third of the viewing area that's seen severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings. North of that, you get up into the Dubuque area. Just looking off screen here, the temperature up in Dubuque is 66 degrees. So they did get on the warm side of the storm. So they warmed up pretty rapidly. Remember, just a few hours ago, let's see how long it took. It was 49 at 3 o'clock. It warmed to 61 at 4 o'clock, and now it's 66.
Wow.
And you saw the dew point go up from 49 to 62 as well. So a really big change there. There's a little isolated storm out ahead of this main line that is in far eastern Clinton County, near Clinton, but it's going to pass north of the city. It's also going to move into far southeastern Jackson County. That goes until 6 o'clock, a similar severe thunderstorm warning, a large hail, quarter-sized, as well as damaging winds. But I just want to illustrate that even if you're not within these warnings, you are seeing the potential for some strong storms and plenty of lightning, plenty of heavy rain. There could be even some small hail mixed in too. So I'll put this radar in motion. Folks in Delaware, Clayton, Grant, Joe Davies, Jackson County, you're yet to see these storms really move through, and so you still have more opportunities for heavy rainfall as well as a little bit of small hail. So far, these storms have behaved themselves. No reports of strong winds, no reports of rotation the farther north that you go. It's not too far to the south, and that line of difference is pretty small. And it's this tornado warning that continues for far eastern Cedar County and portions of Clinton and Scott County until 5:30. And remember, it's the main storm out ahead of it. It's this isolated cell that we're watching for the potential. So if you live in Wheatland, Calamus, Grand Mound, Bluedorn, even Welton, even Lost Nation, as you look a little bit farther to the north, they're likely seeing some of that hail right now. But it's this area pretty close to Wheatland that we're seeing perhaps the rotation start to pick up a little bit. If I just put it in the velocity view, again, it's not the tight, close rotation that you see in every storm that would be imminently producing a tornado, but certainly a possibility as this storm moves through. Though it is, again, oh, excuse me, I hit the wrong button. Bear with me, folks, as we navigate our computer interfaces. Wheatland, again, is the folks on the very edge of this storm, and so that's where some of the rotation is possible. Pinpoint, again, portions of Cedar County and as well as Clinton County. It's a little tough to discern, again, but it is there. It does extend a little bit higher into the cloud, and so I think that's what we're facing in terms of where this storm could be rotating at this point or potentially producing a tornado. Lines up with what you would typically expect given the location in the storm, but then I would say folks near and north of Highway 30 want to use extra caution as things move off to the northeast. Again, at the very least, you're going to get that storm behind it. Severe thunderstorm warning continues for the line of storms behind it, and so you will see those storms produce heavy precipitation, strong winds, potentially hail as well. This line not quite as uniform as it was perhaps just a little bit ago. Maybe starting to see a couple of different cells split off within that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it does look a little bit like what we're seeing there, so it'll be interesting to see how those cells evolve here over the next half hour or so. Again, something we will be keeping a very close eye on as this line continues to track off to the northeast. But something that was kind of interesting to note with this line of storms as it's moving through, and something we've talked about through the afternoon, with this tornado warn storm, it's been out ahead of that main line. It's kind of been by itself, sitting there without any interference from that line that's behind it, but it does look like we're now starting to see that main line starting to catch up with that storm here over the last couple of scans. If that trend were to continue and this line were to overtake that tornado warn storm, there is the potential that that would kind of reduce our tornado threat, weaken that storm, and of course that would be a good thing for folks who are in the path of this storm as it continues to track through. But again, an interesting development here, kind of noticing, yeah, that line looking to kind of split off into at least 3 individual cells from what I can see at this point.
Which happens from time to time. You do occasionally get changes in the atmosphere, changes in the wind in the atmosphere shift as different weather disturbances and levels of the atmosphere move through the atmospheric flow. Things do change. And so sometimes that can take what was formerly conditions ripe for a line of storms, changes it into one that is ripe for individual storms. And we've seen that happen before. It's not super common, but maybe witnessing that happening right now.
Yeah, so again, something worth keeping a very close eye on. Of course, if this line were to break apart into individual cells, of course, would need to closely monitor each of those cells to check and see if they're rotating, how much they're rotating, and if that would warrant any kind of additional warnings on those storms. But for the time being, what we are looking at is, again, that primary storm that has the tornado warning on it, and that's what we've really been tracking throughout the afternoon. And then again, that line of storms that has been falling in behind it. So right now, a quick look in at that tornado warned storm. You can still see that appendage that is kind of stretching off to the south of it. Looks like the tightest spot of rotation along that appendage is going to be just to the north of Calamus, right in there. So that would be, again, your primary area that you're having to keep a close eye on for rotation that could potentially produce a tornado. That does track pretty closely with where that appendage is stretching down and kind of coming to a little bit of a point, maybe just a little bit of a kind of a head there at the end of it. So again, that portion of the storm right there, just north of Calamus, that would be the part of your storm you'd be worried about producing a tornado. But even to the north of it, this heavier, darker coloration in here, and of course you have a little darker, heavier coloration within that appendage as well. Both of those would be spots where you'd want to watch for that potential for hail. Currently, this warning does have hail with it that is 1.25 inches in diameter. So that is all the more reason to take this storm seriously, even if you are far north of that tornado warned or the tornadic part of the storm. Lost Nation would be an example. Or if you are just to the south of Lost Nation, again, currently getting heavy rainfall, likely getting some hail as well. So you'll want to make sure if you're in the path of this storm, regardless of whether you're under the tornado, this specific tornadic part of the storm, still want to make sure that you're getting down into your basement or lowest level of your home, a closet or bathroom, away from any windows with as many walls between you and the outside as you can.
We do have some new pictures sent to us from a viewer, again down by Ottumwa. This is where this all started this afternoon, and it involves what could be a funnel cloud. Of course, static photos, a little tough to tell sometimes because sometimes things can look like a funnel cloud and not be, but this certainly would raise my eyebrows and make me concerned that you would be facing the potential for tornadic development. They also saw a lot of heavy rain, and so 2 rounds of storms in Ottumwa, caused a little street flooding too, and you can see that. So don't drive through that if you don't feel like risking your vehicle. That's probably a smart thing to avoid because, you know, even though that water isn't necessarily flowing in a way like it would coming from a river or stream, you don't want to wind up with that car that's stuck in the middle of the road with its blinkers on and nobody in it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
That is not good for when the water, of course, recedes. You've got to get the car out of the way as soon as you can, so that creates an issue there. But in addition, you don't know what's submerged under that water. Even if you're familiar with what the road looks like when there's no water on it, you don't know if that water has carried something under that could damage your vehicle or cause any issues there. So, and you also don't know if the road has been washed out to a certain degree or not. So again, all the more reason, if you come across those flooded roads, make sure that you are just playing it safe. Turn around, don't drive through those flooded roadways.
Yep, for sure. Let's take a look. Oh, we've got it up already. Thank you, folks. We've got Max 1 up in the main screen. And remember that today is a first alert day, but so is tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit about what we could be facing as we go into your Friday, as we wind down the storms that we're seeing today. We'll give you a recap of where they're standing here in just a minute, but I wanted to get a little information since this is typically our newscast time. So we do have a severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, which was impeccable today. They did a great job with that forecast, and our information that we gave you, our first alert days from days ago, lined up really well today as well. An enhanced risk for severe weather for the area in orange you see down toward Washington, Mount Pleasant, Ottumwa, Oskaloosa, a lot of the same communities we were talking about affected today, but a slight risk extends as far north as Highway 20. So Waterloo, Manchester points to the south. That includes areas like Cedar Rapids and Iowa City as this next storm system moves through. This is going to be a different storm than the one affecting us today. It's pretty impressive to get 2 low pressure systems right one after another within 24 hours, but that's what we're facing here. Individual severe weather threats. Well, we could be talking about similar things as we're talking about today. However, they're lined up just a little bit differently. We've got this area that I'm going to draw on your screen. I'm going to draw this white line, which is about where we're expecting the warm front to be. And so I'm going to put that on each of the pictures here, just to give you some idea. And so it's near and south of that warm front that's going to set up tomorrow, where the risk for tornadoes and stronger wind gusts will be maximized. Now, that doesn't mean that the chance is 0 to the north of that warm front, but once you get farther into the cooler side of the storm, it does make it harder for those particular threats to materialize. You see that damaging wind threat goes a little bit farther north than the tornado risk. However, one thing to note, the risk for large hail is pretty much the same, both in that enhanced risk and slight risk. And that could be up to 2 inches in diameter again tomorrow, because we're going to have plenty of ingredients still north of that warm front that could produce some of that large hail. And we'll show you today. We've got that storm energy that snuck in as it moved in, and then we've got a real good break as we go into the rest of the night. No energy for new storms. We're going to be quiet tonight. Quiet for most of the early portion of Friday, but early afternoon, we start to get some of that energy moving into southeast Iowa again. Notice, though, that it doesn't make us far northeast progress, and that does seem like the case here. Trends have mostly shown that in the information we use to make our forecasts, but at this point, we're watching for a new storm development as we get toward the afternoon. A few storms could develop in the north as we get toward the latter portion of the morning into the afternoon, and then notice that we get additional development farther south, closer to that energy as we get toward the mid and latter portion of the afternoon. Big storm showing up on Pinpoint Futurecast at least by late afternoon into the evening. Additional activity as far north as Highway 20. It lines up really well with that severe weather outlook. And also notice that we're talking about this instead at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock instead of today, where it was between about 2 and now about 6 o'clock before these storms really start to move out most areas. Now tomorrow night we will start to dry out and turn toward a cooler weekend, but that is certainly a look at what we're potentially facing tomorrow. It's another first alert day. We don't want you to let your guard down as we get into that storm system too. It's not going to play out exactly the same as what we're seeing today, but it will play out with the potential to produce more severe weather, and then we'll catch a break for a little bit. AJ, you want to give one last look at this tornado warning as we have it for portions of, well, now just Clinton and Scott County, or is it just Clinton County?
Looks like it is going to be just, let me zoom in here. It looks like just Clinton County from what I can see. Yes, just Clinton County. So this is, again, the storm we have been tracking all afternoon and been on the air with you for a couple of hours now, keeping a close eye on the storm as it has moved through. But again, we'll take one final look at that as it is now moving off into our kind of starting to move out of our viewing area as it approaches the Mississippi River and moves on from there. But this storm has had rotation with it throughout the afternoon. It has had a history of producing a couple of different tornadoes, several funnel clouds as well. But it does look at this point like it is starting to get taken over by that line that it has been outrunning all afternoon. It does still have some rotation with it. Right now, just to the west of Welton is going to be where that rotation is at its tightest, kind of in that circled spot right there. So that's going to be your area that you're concerned about as this storm continues to move off to the northeast. And again, that's going to be as it continues to move towards the Mississippi River. At this point, the rotation is back to radar indicated. At time it was observed, but again, starting to see that storm move out, and as it does move out of the area, we'll see that line pushing out with it, and from that point, we will see our severe threat winding down for the rest of our afternoon and evening.
That's the good news. We'll continue to track things here in the TV9 Weather Lab as things continue through the rest of this evening as the first alert day winds down. We'll have more information on any damage reports and your first alert forecast coming up on the KCRG TV9 News at 6. For meteorologist AJ Rickman, we thank you for choosing us and trusting us with your severe weather information. We'll send it back to regular programming and see you at 6 o'clock. Stay with your trusted local news and weather source, KCRG TV9. Storms. We've got strong storms still moving through eastern Iowa and producing some still fairly intense weather, although it is starting to move out of the state and moving into western Illinois instead. Let's take a look at Max 1. It's got information on thunderstorm activity. You can see that it's still moving off to the east, a severe thunderstorm warning, but we just wanted to update you on this new tornado warning that includes portions of Jackson as well as Clinton County, just south of Joe Daviess County, goes into Carroll County in Illinois. This goes until 6:15. Same storm we've been talking about all day long, still producing an area of rotation, although it is starting to get caught up by that storm behind it, which could start to undercut it and potentially lead to some weakening. That's what we're hoping for, but at this point, still radar indicated rotation, likely moving between Welton, perhaps right around the Welton area. Again, it's a little bit tough to discern as it has become at times, but I would say that area just west of Welton is where we're looking as these storms continue to move through. It's been pretty consistent in terms of producing that rotating area. Yeah, I'd say it's definitely that area near Welton. as we're looking a little bit closer. So if you live in Welton near Highway 61, you would want to seek shelter immediately if you haven't already. This warning continues for another 45 minutes here around eastern Iowa, moving off to the east and northeast. Charlotte, Goose Lake, Delmar, all involved in the potential for more stormy activity, more tornadic activity. Remember, it is just radar indicated at this point as this moves off to the northeast, but that doesn't mean that a tornado isn't occurring. It's just possible that we haven't had a chance to see it yet. So folks within this warning certainly want to seek shelter. There's another storm that is off toward Thompson here in western Illinois. It also looks fairly ominous, but of course that is just outside the TV9 viewing area. Another individual storm that could be producing strong rotation that could lead to tornadic development. So what we're looking at here is the area near Welton. And you can see that we've got an area of rotation. If I pull up the velocity view again, it's a little more evident this time. And so we're going to switch around our views a little bit and show you what we're talking about. It is right here, and it involves that area just southwest of Petersville. It's going to head toward Highway 136 as it crosses farther away from Highway 61. We're talking Clinton County at this point, and then it will eventually move into southern Jackson County too. So areas near Van Buren. It's going to produce rotation in areas near Miles, and potentially we could be talking about up toward Twin Springs and Sterling here in just a little bit. But the area where it's producing rotation now is a little stronger down toward Welton. This could be that interaction between storms that we've seen sometimes that produces occasionally a little bit of a ramping up in some of that rotation, because we are seeing that secondary line catch up and pass off to the east. That is the tornado warning that goes until 6:15 this evening for portions of Clinton as well as Jackson County here in far, far eastern Iowa. Other areas outside of this still seeing some strong gusty winds, and we've got that severe thunderstorm warning for portions of Cedar and Muscatine and Jones County, although the strongest portion of the storm has now moved off to the east. You can see it's now entering Scott and Clinton County again as well. Some reports from the area, we got 60-mile-per-hour winds in Loudon earlier. There was a report of quarter-sized hail in Clarence, 58-mile-per-hour wind in Tipton, as well as that brief tornado report east of West Branch. Of course, that's a ways back at this point within the past hour or two. These storms all moving off to the northeast, and we will be keeping a close eye on them as they do so. If conditions warrant, and we want to provide you additional information here, we will do so as well. So we will keep a close eye on this. We're going to dip out of at least providing audio commentary for the moment and send you back to just some information from our weather computers. Again, we're still tracking things here in the TV9 Weather Lab to give you all the latest as we see it. Stick with us, and we will help to keep you safe. Corey Thompson with this update about what's going on in Clinton County. We're, of course, keeping an eye on things as they move out of eastern Iowa. You can see most areas seeing sunshine again before the sun sets. A tornado warning continues until 6:15. It's now listed for an observed tornado. And I believe the National Weather Service is basing this on spotter reports. No, I'm sorry, radar confirmed tornado. And so we can show you that here on Pinpoint Doppler radar ourselves to show you what's going on. It is moving off to the northeast pretty quickly, and you can see this area of rotation. It's a pretty small, compact one, but it's there. And if I change our velocity view just a little bit, we'll get a better idea of where that is. It's right crossing Highway 136, northwest of Charlotte. And you can see it's moving off to the northeast. And if we actually step back the view a little bit, just a couple minutes, after we left our commentary earlier, you can see going forward, it sticks with us. That signature is there. And so we have that continuing off to the northeast and potentially producing a tornado. There's even some indication using the debris tracking abilities of Doppler radar. Not seeing it necessarily myself in that view, but there was indication earlier, and if we actually go a little bit back, again, bear with me, we're going to take a look at that earlier. Yep, so you can see it right here. And so it's this circle. That's the indication of some damage being done by a tornado. And if we go to the next frame from the radar, you can see it moves off along the path where that storm is taking place, and it actually spreads out a little bit. And so that's a somewhat typical thing when you see a tornado occur and then maybe perhaps weaken a little bit. That area of potential debris spreads out as it gets lofted higher into the storm. And as we go to now, you can see it's even harder to find farther to the north as it broadens across a bigger area. And so there likely was a little tornado in Clinton County as this storm moved through, which is why that National Weather Service warning continued. It will continue as it moves off to the northeast, and as quickly as that storm maybe produced a tornado, it could just quickly do it again. Even though the evidence from the debris tracker suggests perhaps it's not, but it is moving into far southern Jackson County. Areas near Preston would be certainly in line for this now as the area of rotation moves closely to Highway 64. You can see it's just southwest of Preston and moving toward Miles, Van Buren, Sterling. A lot of places we discussed just moments ago as this storm continues off to the northeast. And so that will be southeastern Jackson County that will see this potential tornado moving off to the northeast. It will be rain wrapped. You will not be able to see it coming as it is more toward the backside of some heavier rain that's out ahead of it. And so it's very imperative that if you know someone in that area, if you live in that area, seek shelter until this storm passes as it moves off to the northeast. We'll be here monitoring things in the TV9 Weather Lab. Me and AJ still keeping an eye on stuff, and we'll be back if conditions warrant. In the meantime, stick with us. Hi there. For those joining us on our streaming platform still at this time, we're going to send you back to regular coverage here in just a few minutes. It's going to be our 6 o'clock newscast, of course, as you would normally see on this stream. But the severe weather threat for the majority of eastern Iowa at this point, except for far eastern Jackson, far northern Clinton County, has come to an end. Tornado watch has been canceled in many places, will be canceled early everywhere else as these storms cross the Mississippi. We really thank you for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully it was informative and helped to keep folks safe. And of course, if storms do threaten again, and they may as soon as tomorrow, we'll be back. Have a great night.